Chapter 112. I've always thought that student Wang Ling is a very good child, and he usually doesn't cause trouble at school. He's very well behaved. No matter how poor we are, we can't be poor in education. I hope that our school's special subsidy this time will truly help student Wang Ling. Given student Wang Ling's talent, as long as he has enough resources, it won't be a problem at all for him to reach the golden core stage. When Teacher Pan said this, she reached out to rub Wang Ling's head, and the expression on Wang Ling's face dimmed even more. The old man nodded. Teacher Pan is right. No matter how poor we are, we can't be poor in education. Ling Ling has always been the pride of our Wang family. Teacher Pan smiled and nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. After that, the old man invited Teacher Pan to take a stroll upstairs. The two of them talked and laughed while Wang Ling followed them calmly. When Teacher Pan reached the study, Father and Mother Wang, who were hiding inside, held their breaths at the same time. Teacher Pan, what's wrong? The old man asked. Teacher Pan pointed at the study as she sensed an aura. There seems to be someone inside? Wang Ling broke out in a sweat and hurriedly spread out his strength to cover up Father and Mother Wang's aura. Teacher Pan used her spiritual senses to feel out again, and then realized that the aura she had sensed earlier had unexpectedly disappeared, so she frowned strangely. Ah, strange? The old man smiled awkwardly. Maybe it's a rat. Teacher Pan was startled. There are rats in this villa? The old man sighed helplessly. It's the suburbs, it's not strange to have rats. This guy is rich in protein, and can be eaten anywhere else after removing the head and tail. When our family couldn't afford to eat before, I often caught rats for my child's father to roast. Teacher Pan? Wang Ling suddenly realized that the old man was a little good at bullshitting. As they talked and laughed, it was already noon, and Teacher Pan and the old man came downstairs. Mr. Wang, I have 2 students to visit in the afternoon, so let's call it a day. Teacher Pan smiled at the old man. The old man was a little absent-minded when he saw this smile. Seeing that Teacher Pan was about to reach the entrance, he hurriedly grabbed her hand. Teacher Pan, you haven't eaten yet, right? Do you want to stay and eat? This is so embarrassing. As the old man spoke, he had already taken the apron from the hanger. It's just a simple meal. How about the sweet and sour pork set? Teacher Pan's expression changed a little. The old man's words were like an arrow shooting into an old photo album in her memory. This old photo album was very old and had already turned yellow. The pages were so blurry that even the faces on them could not be seen clearly. In the end, Teacher Pan stayed, but her expression was clearly a little different from before. A sweet and sour spare rib set meal. This should have been his favorite food when he was young. How did this person know? Was it a coincidence? Teacher Pan was silent. She sat quietly in the living room and didn't speak to Wang Ling. She stared blankly at the old man's busy figure in the kitchen. The old man held the kitchen knife, his old hand mottled with wrinkles and a few obvious old wounds. Whether it was his left hand holding the chopping board or his right hand holding the knife, they were all covered with calluses. Needless to say, Teacher Pan could guess that the old man was an old chef who had been in the business for at least several decades. Teacher Pan quietly recalled the old photo in her memory, and it was as if she could already see the outline of it. But the old man had already swiftly and decisively prepared the simple meal. This was a sweet and sour pork ribs covered with rice. Pieces of red ribs were soaked in the sparkling and translucent broth. The ribs were wrapped in a golden coat and emitted a refreshing fragrance. Just the smell alone was enough to make one salivate uncontrollably. Teacher Pan stared at the ribs, her eyes clearly a little unfocused and absent-minded. This set of rice with rice used to be my specialty. I haven't made it in a long time, I don't know if it still tastes good. The old man untied his apron and sat opposite Teacher Pan. Teacher Pan, try it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wang. Teacher Pan ate the rice in small bites, then took a small bite of the ribs. The ribs cooked by the old man were very soft, and felt as if they would melt in the mouth. However, the taste seemed a little special, especially when the gravy washed over the taste buds. It actually had a cool taste which couldn't help but whet one's appetite. It's really a special taste. Teacher Pan was full of praise. Why does this sweet and sour pork have a cool feeling? Grandfather Wang, I just realized that there was no more sugar in the house, so I used Gigi syrup to replace it. Teacher Pan, Wang Ling. Before she left, Teacher Pan stood at the door and bowed deeply to the old man. Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Wang. Your cooking is excellent. The old man was a little sad. Teacher Pan, please come back again. Of course. Teacher Pan smiled slightly as she stood at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. The afternoon sun shone on her face, and her tightly furrowed eyebrows gradually relaxed. Her eyes twinkled as she solemnly said goodbye to the old man in an incomparably gentle manner, then slowly turned around and left. Looking at this scene, Wang Ling knew that this story of first love, which had spanned so many years and time, had come to an end at this moment. The old man stood at the door and watched as Teacher Pan walked along East Huang Road to the bus stop. In the end, Teacher Pan still couldn't recognize who the old man was. But it didn't seem that important to the old man anymore. In the middle of the night, the old man sat in the living room and flipped through the love letter he had written to his first love. On the back of the letter, he had written his final farewell to his first love, stroke by stroke. This was a hymn, the first and the last one. Whether it was the beginning of the throbbing or the ending of the unrequited love, or the moving journey of more than 30 years, the ending had already been written. I suddenly forgot the beginning of the pursuit, but it's hard to forget your youthful face, to write a full stop to those 30 years of youth. Everything is too beautiful. Youth, First Love. These two books seem to have been written in a hurry. But fortunately the last full stop. Touched on the rainbow-colored clouds, may you be happy like the rainbow if you are well, the sky is clear. In the bedroom, Wang Ling quietly looked at the last hymn that the old man had written. At that moment Wang Ling suddenly understood. Chapter 113. Back then, after grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had bulldozed the villa's back garden, he had built a simple sunroom in its place. There were all kinds of hybrid spirit herbs planted inside, which grenade-throwing Senior Immortal used for research. It had always been grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's dream to become the father of hybrid spirit herbs in the cultivation world. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had always wanted to develop a kind of spirit herb that was easy to grow and could quickly gather the spirit energy of heaven and earth for children in poor areas who didn't have the resources to cultivate. Long before he had moved to Wuxia Garden, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been doing research in this area. Unfortunately, there were a lot of technical problems with hybrid spirit herbs, and 2 months ago, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's research had hit a bottleneck. Furthermore, he still hadn't made a breakthrough. Just as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mentality was about to collapse, Grandfather Wang's broccoli gave him renewed confidence in his research. After returning home from the Wang family's small villa, the first thing grenade-throwing Senior Immortal did after connecting with Little Black was to transplant the broccoli into the spirit soil in the sunroom. Although this broccoli had already been cooked by Old Man Wang, the strange power of the cultivation spirit land could bring this broccoli back to life. This was an important revelation that the great senior had left for him on his path of cultivation. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that no matter what, he had to preserve this broccoli. Early in the morning on Sunday, May 23rd, when the first ray of sunlight shone through the early morning clouds, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was sitting cross-legged in his villa's back garden to cultivate. Since transplanting this broccoli, apart from watching ghost videos regularly to train his eyesight, sitting cross-legged in front of this broccoli in the sunroom every morning had already become a compulsory course for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Crossing his arms and sitting cross-legged, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal straightened his back and stared fixedly at the broccoli. As he pondered this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he was only a thin layer of window paper away from comprehending heavenly Tao and advancing from the soul formation stage to the void refinement stage. But unfortunately, he still couldn't figure out why that great senior had given him this broccoli back then. While he was pondering this, he received a message saying, "Unknown area." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately knew that this message had to be from Little Black. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the message and read it, his expression gradually turned solemn. As long as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal used the bound application on his wristwatch, he would be able to see everything even if he was in outer space. But grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still felt that something was missing. After pondering for a while with his chin in his hand, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mind flashed as he instantly thought of something. Generally speaking, there would be a watchdog next to a divine weapon or some sealed object, right? I still lack a watchdog. After thinking it through, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately made a call, and the person who picked up was none other than the alchemist in the group, Immortal Toya. As soon as the call was picked up, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal heard a loud boom on the other end of the line. Needless to say, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal knew that this guy's furnace had exploded again. Cough, cough, cough. Immortal Toya coughed violently, as if he had choked on the smoke from the furnace explosion. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could imagine the scene over the phone. Cough, cough. Hello, who is this? I'm Toya, what can I do for you? I'm grenade throwing. Realization dawned on Immortal Toya. Oh, so it's Senior Immortal. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal? What are you doing, brother two? Immortal Toya. I was just researching a new type of elixir. After taking it, you'll have a 24-hour Wi-Fi signal. Why are you looking for me, Senior Immortal? Grenade throwing Senior Immortal didn't bother with pleasantries and got straight to the point. Given his friendship with Immortal Toya, there was no need to beat around the bush at all. After listening to the request, Immortal Toya on the other end of the line was blank. Doshir? Why would you want to borrow a Doshir from me? Go to the Shao clan. However, the remaining Doshirs were all antiques. Without Dochi to drive them and without the ability to use spiritual energy, they were basically useless. Now they're just security guards for the Shao family compound to maintain security and order. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal broke out in a sweat. Brother two, are you deliberately playing dumb? I don't want a Doshir. I want a fighting lion. The Lion of Lions. The thing you won from the Shao clan's elixir competition back then. Chapter 114. The fighting lion was a hybrid spirit beast bred by the Shao clan after the spiritual energy era began. It possessed wind and fire elements. Among them, the fire element was the most common, followed by the wind element. There were also a few fighting lions that possessed two elements at the same time, and they were priceless. A young fighting lion was at the level of a human gold core stage. Not only was it muscular and agile, but it also had a strong learning ability. Even the overall level of intelligence was ranked at the top of the mammalian spirit beasts. Because of its ferocity, the cultivation of fighting lions was restricted under the supervision of Wuxia Nation's Spirit Pet Supervision Bureau. Therefore, fighting lions were very rare. The Shao clan had only cultivated about 500 fighting lions. He was kept in the Wuta forest by the Shao clan. The one in Immortal Toya's hand was the one he had won in the elixir competition back then. Now, Immortal Toya was an advisor to the Shao clan's Alchemists Association, and his relationship with the clan could be said to be unusual. Immortal Toya, this little thing is hard to discipline. When I took it in back then it was only the size of a basketball, but it managed to bite through 8 of my pill furnaces. May I ask Brother Lei, why do you want to borrow this fighting lion? I wanted to keep an eye on things for me. Anyway, it's where you are. Just keep an eye on the orchard, right? You even stole and ate spirit fruits. Now is the time to test its combat strength. Immortal Toya shrugged. Then, for how long? Grenade throwing Senior Immortal quickly replied, half a month. Immortal Toya asked again, then, is it dangerous? Grenade throwing Senior Immortal, I might die. Immortal Toya, but don't worry brother two. If he dies I'll give you an even better one. Do you know about the fighting phoenix? This was the latest hybrid spiritual bird that the Shao clan had recently bred. It was King awesome. I'll steal one for you another day. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal vowed. Immortal Toya, it went without saying how precious a fighting lion was. If an ordinary person had come to borrow it, Immortal Toya would have immediately refused. However, it was Grenade throwing Senior Immortal who had come to borrow it this time. Given their friendship and face, Immortal Toya knew that he had no choice but to lend it to him this time. In the evening, Grenade throwing Senior Immortal received a text message from Wang Ling. There were some things to take note of when attending the parent-teacher conference. It could be summed up in one word: low profile. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal was well aware of this brother Ling's personality. He was a guy who liked to keep a low profile. But to be honest, Grenade throwing Senior Immortal was a little bewildered by the parent-teacher conference. He didn't even have a child, and now he had to pretend to be a parent to attend the masquerade. Just thinking about it was a pain in the ass. After thinking for a while, Lei Murin suddenly thought of something. He raised his hand and called Xiaohei. Hey Xiaohei, help me investigate one more thing. Right, help me look up information on all the parents and teachers in grade 1 class 3 of number 60 high school. After saying that, Grenade throwing Senior Immortal happily hung up. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will emerge victorious in every battle. At the same time, in the Foreign Language Research Office of Landscape Manor, 2 men in suits, one tall and one short, were reporting in front of Director Song's desk. The tall man in a suit handed them a report which clearly listed the entire day's surveillance of Grenade throwing Senior Immortal. At 4 o'clock, the target got out of bed and went to the back garden. He sat cross-legged in front of a broccoli and stared at it with his head bowed in deep thought. At 5 o'clock, the target continued to stare at the broccoli with his head bowed in deep thought. At 6 o'clock, the target was still staring at the broccoli with his head bowed in deep thought. At 7 o'clock, the target was still staring at the broccoli when he suddenly stood up in surprise. Director Song stared at the report with a stupefied expression. What the hell was this guy doing? Before Director Song could think it through, his wristwatch rang. Seeing the caller ID, he was so frightened that his wrist trembled. It was a call from the Lord of the Castle. How's the situation going? The Lord of Immortal Castle's deep male voice came from the other end of the line. Lord, we've been monitoring the target all day, but his behavior seems very suspicious. He actually sat cross-legged and stared at a broccoli for 3 whole hours. The person on the other end of the line was clearly stunned for a few seconds before he slowly said, "This great death-courting senior is famous in the circle. How can the likes of you fathom the thoughts of a soul formation cultivator?" The Lord of the Castle is right. It doesn't matter what this great death-courting senior is thinking. But one thing is certain. Given this senior's thinking, the more suspicious his behavior is, the more urgent this matter can't be dragged on. So, are we going to take it by force? Director Song was a little apprehensive. In the end, it had still come to this, but it wouldn't be easy to take this mask from a soul formation cultivator. I know what you're worried about. It won't be easy to snatch the mask from this great death-courting senior. This senior definitely has a thorough understanding of the stone ghost mask. There's a strong curse on it, so it can't be carried around. I'm sure this mask is still in this villa. I'm afraid it's been sealed away by this senior. The Lord of the Castle is right. Director Song nodded. Even if we can break into the villa, it'll take some time to break the seal. Not necessarily. The voice on the other end of the line sneered in a low voice. I admit that this great death-courting senior is indeed very troublesome. A soul formation cultivator isn't easy to deal with. But if we can send someone of equal strength, perhaps the outcome will be different? The Lord of the Castle means, how about 5 soul formation cultivators? The voice laughed. I want you to organize a plan to deploy them to invade and seize the stone ghost mask. 5 soul formation cultivators? Director Song felt his hands tremble. Isn't 5 enough? If it isn't, the voice on the other end of the line continued to speak in a low and shocking voice. Then 10. 10 soul formation cultivators. Director Song was already completely incoherent, and the 2 golden core men in suits standing in front of him had lifeless expressions on their faces. He was just a nascent soul cultivator, but now he had to command 10 soul formation cultivators at the same time to complete a mission? I recently spent a priceless treasure in exchange for these 10 soul formation cultivators. They signed a contract to serve my Immortal Castle for 3 years. You've been with me for many years and you've rarely failed. This time, I hope we can smoothly complete the mission. The stone ghost mask is something that my Immortal Castle must have. It can't fall into anyone's hands. Director Song held his thigh as he answered the phone. Don't worry, Lord of the Castle. I will definitely complete the mission smoothly. I won't let you down. While Director Song was on the phone, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had fallen into a dilemma again. There were times when he was a man with obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety disorder, and a perfectionist Virgo. He had to ensure that the stone ghost mask was absolutely safe when he wasn't at the villa tomorrow. Although he had already hired a fighting lion to guard the villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still felt a little uneasy. It was like going out for less than 5 minutes and suddenly starting to wonder if his door was locked or the gas was turned off. Thus, after some thought, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal made another call. Chapter 115. It was Monday, May 24th, and today was the day of the parent-teacher conference. It was also the most uneasy day for all the students of number 60 high school. Wang Ling was probably the only one whose heart was as calm as an ancient well, and even felt like laughing a little. This wasn't the first time they had found someone to attend the parent-teacher conference in their place. The main reason was that the Wang couple themselves didn't want to attend, because it would cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. First of all, the couple considered themselves ordinary people who didn't know how to cultivate, so they didn't have anything in common with the other parents. Moreover, the child of 2 ordinary people had actually cultivated to the foundation establishment stage and entered a cultivation high school. Just the thought of it was suspicious. Another reason was that the couple had had enough of the other parents comparing themselves to each other. At parent-teacher conferences, the most common thing one would hear before the start of the meeting was that so-and-so parents would brag about how outstanding their child was, how proficient they were in the flying sword technique, and how high their scores in the cultivation theory test. Father and Mother Wang both agreed that these outstanding children couldn't be compared with their Ling Ling at all. In any case, if they really got into a fight, Wang Ling would kill them with one slap. Being invincible was so lonely. Thus, after Father and Mother Wang thought things through, they never attended parent-teacher conferences again after Wang Ling was in elementary school. This kind of conference was simply too boring. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Wang Ling showed up at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's Wuxia Garden luxury villa complex as promised. Because he still had to go to school, Wang Ling had only sent a clone to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's house. Although it was just a clone, Wang Ling felt that it was enough to protect the stone ghost mask. When he arrived at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's house, he saw a huge Shunfeng God Express container truck parked in front of the house. Two Shunfeng God Express delivery men in black suits jumped out of the truck and pressed a button on the remote control in their hands. The container immediately opened on all sides and a huge cage came into view. Inside the cage was a golden red lion which was 3 times the size of a spirit lion in an average cultivation zoo. Wang Ling recognized at one glance that this was a fighting lion bred by the Shao clan. This fighting lion was pretty well raised. Its limbs were powerful and very strong, and one could faintly see the thick veins hidden under its skin. The moment the container opened, its flame-colored mane fluttered in the wind. When its gaze fell on the God Express delivery men, both of them couldn't help trembling. The God Express delivery men couldn't help sweating as they thought of a detail. It seemed that before the lion had been sent here, its owner, Immortal Toya, had fed it a calming pill. Obviously, the effect of the medicine was about to expire. As everyone knows, fighting lions have relatively hot tempers. As long as they are not around their master, they are almost always in a state of rage. The 2 divine couriers hurriedly put the cage on the ground and closed the door of the container truck. Standing anxiously at the door, when he saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal open the door and come out, he immediately braced himself and bowed in salute. Shun Feng Shun's mission. Please sign for it, Mr. Lei. Shun, don't we need a 5-star rating today? The God Express delivery men's realms weren't high, and were only at the golden core stage. They couldn't withstand this fighting lion's gaze at all, and just wanted to leave as soon as possible. There's still plenty of time for a good rating. It's good that Mr. Lei is satisfied with our service. We'll take our leave first. The 2 God Express delivery men bowed again and then drove off in the container truck as if they were fleeing. Looking at this scene, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help laughing. What 2 cowards! After the container truck drove away, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw Wang Ling, who had been blocked by the container truck earlier, and immediately stepped forward to greet him warmly. Yo, Brother Ling. Nice bunny me bunny yo. Wang Ling, let me introduce you, Brother Ling. The guy in the cage is the fighting lion I borrowed from Immortal Toya. It's specially here to help me guard the seal, so you 2 should take care of each other today. Saying this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal undid the heavy black iron chains on the cage. Brother Fighting, you can come out now. The fighting lion lay lazily in the cage and just raised its eyelids, showing no intention of coming out at all. Wang Ling, it was obvious that it hadn't been completely tamed yet. Adult fighting lions generally only listen to their masters. When their masters weren't around, they wouldn't listen to anyone at all. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little embarrassed at this scene. He was at the soul formation stage and in front of his best brother, he couldn't even tame a lion cub. It was really a little embarrassing. He put his hands on his hips and looked like he was going to negotiate with the fighting lion. Brother Fighting, give me some face and hurry up and come out of the cage, won't you? Brother Toya and I have known each other for so many years, and he sent you to me because the organization trusts you. Do you understand? The fighting lion rolled its eyes at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother Fighting, I've never humbled myself like this before. Let me tell you, if you weren't Brother Toya's pet, I would have beaten you to a pulp. If it weren't for Brother Toya, I would have beaten you down long ago. Let me tell you, hurry up and come out of the cage, otherwise I'll go crazy and even I'm afraid of myself. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hooted as he stuck his head directly into the cage. Then Wang Ling saw the fighting lion bite down on grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's head with a howl. In an instant, blood gushed out and flowed down grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's neck. Wang Ling, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, who was still in the lion's mouth, sighed. I've embarrassed myself in front of Brother Ling, I was already prepared. As soon as he said this, an old voice rang out from his wristwatch. Evil creature. Let go. It was Immortal Toya's voice. Sure enough, when the fighting lion heard this voice, it immediately let go. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal successfully escaped from the lion's mouth and wiped the blood on his neck. Luckily I was smart. I asked Brother Toya for a recording. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal pressed the play button. The only thing Wang Ling heard was, "Evil creature. Let go." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also had Immortal Toya record a few other words which were, "Evil creature. Get down. Evil creature. Get down. Evil creature. Raise your hands. And go evil creature. I've decided on you." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed. "If Brother Ling can't handle it later, just directly play the recording." Wang Ling looked at the fighting lion in the cage, his eyes calm and without the slightest ripple of emotion. He didn't use the slightest bit of pressure to deliberately oppress this fighting lion. Just a glance was enough to make this majestic fighting lion so scared that its mane stood on end. What kind of pressure was this? The fighting lion was terrified and had an indescribable feeling. As a spirit beast, its almost innate sense for danger told it that this wasn't a guy it could easily provoke. What should it do? Should it show goodwill? Otherwise it would die. The fighting lion thought for a moment. There was no other way. Now that things had come to this, it could only learn the cat's common trick of acting cute. Then, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling saw the fighting lion slowly walk out of the cage and turn over in front of them. It raised its little paws, exposed its belly and closed its eyes miserably. "Come on. I'll let you feel good once." Chapter 116. Killing with one's gaze was Wang Ling's usual trick. If Loopy Toad was here as the toad that had come over, it would definitely express deep sympathy for this fighting lion's misfortune. When Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw that the fighting lion had instantly become as obedient as a cat, he couldn't help showing a surprised expression. Once again he was deeply impressed by the miraculousness of his brother Ling. He remembered that when he had asked Wang Ling to accompany him to hunt down the demon beasts that had escaped from the gate between worlds, Wang Ling had been like this almost every time. He had felled those demon beasts with just one look. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was sure that this definitely wasn't a spell or a forced spiritual pressure. It was just a simple glance. Without using any cultivation techniques, to what extent could the oppressive feeling created by a mere gaze reach? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that Wang Ling could perfectly illustrate this point. Of course, temperament played a part in this. In a situation where their realms were equal, the more powerful one's essence, qi, and spirit were able to instill a deeper sense of fear. But this also reflected Wang Ling's true strength, which was unfathomable. Of course, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't know that the one in front of him was actually just a clone of Wang Ling. Wang Ling felt that if this great death-courting senior knew the truth, he would definitely cry on the spot. 6 years ago when the demon rampage had started, apart from Audiobook and the others who had been awarded meritorious service, there had been no other survivors. In fact, there were also some strong cultivators hired by the government to deal with the aftermath of the incident and clean up the mess. Mercenaries at the soul formation stage were scarce all over the world, and in the cultivation circle of Wuxia Nation, the 10 saints were the most famous. The 10 sages represented a mercenary group of 10 people, all of whom were at the soul formation stage. The 10 saints had 2 characteristics. First, they were not only strong but also brutal. Ever since the establishment of the 10 saints, all the missions they had received had been large-scale. And every time they went on a mission, the 10 saints had a habit of wiping out their opponents, leaving no one alive. Employers in the industry had once made a rather clear assessment of the 10 saints. When the 10 saints go to war, not even a blade of grass will grow. The second characteristic, love of money. As soul formation stage mercenaries that could be bought with money, the 10 sages were rare existences. However, employers who could hire the 10 saints were quite rare. This was because every single one of the 10 saints had a sky-high price. Therefore, to the 10 saints there was no real justice to speak of. They could be hired by the government to clean up the mess, or they could be hired to do some bad things. For the 10 saints, money was justice. As long as they paid enough, they didn't mind calling you daddy. Therefore, when Director Song Qingshu found out that the people he was going to command were actually the 10 saints, he was extremely shocked. For the first time, he felt that he had underestimated the strength of the castle lord. Employing 10 people at the same time was an immeasurably huge sum of money. Even Huagua Water Curtain Group, the largest elixir group in Wuxia Nation, would have to think twice. But this time, the lord of the castle had actually obtained the right to use these 10 people for 3 years. What kind of priceless treasure was that? Song Qing-shu found it hard to imagine with his limited experience. At around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was ready to set off from the villa. When he drove the Immortal sword, he often unknowingly had the habit of speeding. By the time the score for his sword-riding license was refreshed back to 12 points in June, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was already down to 2 points. So this time he planned to take a spirit car. It would only take him a little over an hour to get to Wang Ling's school, just in time for the parent-teacher conference. As a citizen of Wuxia Nation, even if he was at the soul formation stage, he still had to abide by the basic law. He had to maintain good citizenship. This had always been grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's code of conduct. After all, times were different now. In the past, as long as your realm was strong enough, you could do whatever you wanted. Take the most cliched example of auctions. In the past, even if you bought something with money, you could be in danger of being killed and robbed at any time. But now, with the cultivation police and the orthodox legal system, the era when realm was everything had long since passed. You had strength and a high realm, but if you broke the law, you would still be thrown in jail and picked up soap with your brothers. Everyone knew that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal liked to court death, and often considered himself great death-courting senior, but he would never casually cross the bottom line of the law. Brother Ling, I'll leave the rest to you. At the entrance of the villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said goodbye to Wang Ling and was ready to leave. Wang Ling crossed his arms and leaned against the door with a solemn expression. The fighting lion squatted obediently next to Wang Ling and played around on the side. After being tamed by Wang Ling's gaze, it had changed its previously aloof and unapproachable attitude and turned around to lick its temples and its chrysanthemum. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little speechless. In front of Wang Ling, this guy already completely regarded itself as a cat. Brother Ling, you feel it too, right? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said as he stood at the entrance of the villa and looked at Wang Ling's solemn expression. Wang Ling nodded without hesitation. It was obvious that he sensed that there was more than one person watching this place at that very moment. Looks like my worries weren't without reason. I knew that group of people wouldn't give up so easily. Wang Ling frowned. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, but with Brother Ling here, I'm sure we can handle it, right? Wang Ling frowned again. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, I say Brother Ling, don't frown, you're making me panic. Wang Ling, there were a lot of reasons why Wang Ling could frown. For example, he had done too well in exams, his pocket money had been deducted by Father Wang, or the limited edition crispy noodle snacks that had been sold out. As for fear, of course, that didn't exist. Although Wang Ling had to admit that the auras of this group of people outside were indeed very strong, they were on a completely different level from the group of Shadow Stream assassins he had dealt with before. He just didn't know if they could take a beating. Wang Ling didn't even need to lift a finger to deal with the Shadow Stream group before they died from the backlash. Looking at the overall strength of this group of people outside, Wang Ling felt that they could probably take 2 or 3 more punches from him. The reason why Wang Ling frowned was that there seemed to be too many people on the other side, which was a little annoying. After all, tonight was the premiere of the latest large-scale cultivation anti-corruption TV series Righteousness of the People, and Wang Ling didn't want to miss it. Because during the premiere, Little Raccoon, as the title sponsor, would randomly select 300 people from the audience and give them a 30-year gift bag of crispy noodle snacks. Chapter 117. Given Wang Ling's current realm, even a clone had a tremendous amount of energy, and to control such a massive mass of energy would inevitably consume the main body's mental energy. How the F***K could he watch his TV series in peace? Sensing the auras of the 10 soul formation cultivators outside, Wang Ling felt like he had been tricked by grenade-throwing Senior Immortal again. He had thought that he would just have to watch the stone ghost mask for a while and wait for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to come back from the parent-teacher conference. Thus, he had only sent a clone to watch over it. Who would have thought that the people from Landscape Manor would actually send 10 people, and all of them at the soul formation stage? Of course, if his main body had been here, Wang Ling wouldn't have been afraid. But the problem was that this was just a clone. As a clone, it had a fatal weakness, and that was that if it was subjected to a violent impact, its energy protection mechanism would activate, and it would instantly turn into a pile of dust. There were now 2 hours until the students of number 60 High were dismissed from school, and 3 hours before the TV series started airing. This meant that Wang Ling had to use this clone to get rid of all 10 soul formation cultivators within 2 hours. Then he would take it back and happily go home to wait for the TV series. Cupping his chin, he pondered for a while. 2 minutes later, he thought of a safer way. In the current situation, The only way to minimize the risk of his clone disappearing was to make sure that it didn't come into contact with those people. Once the clone disappeared, even with the fighting lion guarding it, it wouldn't be able to fend off 10 soul formation cultivators who would forcibly seize the stone ghost mask. After searching around grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa for a long time, Wang Ling finally found cinnabar, yellow talismans, spirit water and a writing brush. Making talismans was a basic skill for cultivators, and these talisman-making tools were a necessity in almost every household. When Wang Ling saw that the cinnabar that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had bought was actually mixed with black dust powder, he couldn't help sighing. When black dust powder was mixed with cinnabar, it greatly increased the success rate of making a talisman. On the market, 1 gram of black dust powder could sell for up to 20,000 HNY. How extravagant. But the truth was that Wang Ling didn't care at all whether there was black dust powder or not. Even without these supplementary materials, his success rate at making talismans was over 99%. It was only with a certain chance that he would fail when making an ultimate invincible talisman. This time he was going to draw a functional talisman with the ultimate goal of strengthening the fighting lion. Immortal Toya's fighting lion was already very strong to begin with, and was comparable to a soul formation cultivator. What Wang Ling needed to do now was to package this fighting lion properly and add some special skills. The best would be to make it look very cool at first glance. There was a limousine parked on the roadside outside the Wuxia Garden Villa area. The tall man in a suit was in charge of setting up the vehicle while Song Qingshu sat in the front passenger seat. In the carriage behind him, the 10 saints sat cross-legged in a circle. The carriage had been expanded with space expansion technology. It was as big as a field, and it wouldn't be crowded even if 100 more people entered. Now, 10 semi-god realm cultivators were setting up a matrix together, which made the whole scene a bit shocking. "Lord Supervisor, what are the 10 saints doing?" asked a subordinate in a suit in the driver's seat. "He's setting up a heaven and earth spiritual perception array." Song Qingshu narrowed his eyes. A cultivator's perception of spiritual senses was like a cell phone signal. The higher a cultivator's realm was, the more sensitive they would be to nearby spiritual sense signals. The heaven and earth spiritual perception array that the 10 saints were setting up could converge spiritual senses into a cosmic torrent which connected heaven and earth, and then pour it down from the universe beyond the heavens, thus turning spiritual senses into a very secretive and invisible signal. No matter how powerful a person's realm was, they would let down their guard under this kind of spirit array, and be monitored invisibly. The Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array. Legend has it that this ancient array was used by the older generation cultivators in the ancient cultivation battlefield to monitor the movements of the demon race. When necessary, it could even be converted into an offensive method by gathering spiritual pressure to attack. The spiritual pressure would pour down from the sky like a satellite laser cannon with immense power. However, there were very few people who knew how to use this array nowadays. To activate it, one had to be at the soul formation stage. Furthermore, at least 3 people had to set up the array together. The more people there were, the stronger the effect of the array. In the front passenger seat, Song Qingshu couldn't help marveling in his heart as he looked at the image from the back of the car through the monitor screen. As expected of the 10 saints, they even know this kind of old array and are so good at it. At that moment, an old man with a goatee inside the array said calmly, "Director Song, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal has already left." This person was the head of the 10 saints, and his Taoist name was Great Saint. Left? Song Qingshu frowned. Given grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's personality, there's no way he would seal the stone ghost mask in the villa alone. There must be some other defensive measures. Senior Great Saint, did you see anything else? The old man with the goatee nodded. As Director Song predicted, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal has left. Although this grenade-throwing Senior Immortal has left, we saw a youngster and a fighting lion in the villa. How could there be a fighting lion? Song Qingshu's eyes twitched. This fighting lion wasn't an ordinary spirit pet, it had been bred by the Shao clan. To be able to borrow a fighting lion. Didn't this mean that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's relationship with the Shao clan wasn't ordinary? The old Taoist with the goatee sneered. Should we get rid of this beast? Song Qingshu, I think, we still have to consider the influence of power. If we kill this fighting lion in public, I don't think the Shao clan will let it go. What do you think, Senior Great Saint? It seems that Director Song still doesn't understand our way of doing things. The old Taoist with the goatee shook his head. Director Song, do you know Taoist Han and Taoist Diyun? Once, when the 2 Taoists battled, they came up with a famous saying. Song Qingshu suddenly understood. It's that saying, "The world slandered me, bullied me, humiliated me, laughed at me, belittled me, despised me, hated me, and lied to me. What should I do?" Of course I know this. I also know the second half of the saying, "As long as we tolerate them, let them and let them." But before Song Qingshu could finish speaking, the old Taoist with the goatee directly waved his hand and cut him off. "No, that's not the second half of the saying." Song Qingshu was a little puzzled. "Please enlighten me, Senior Great Saint." "I wouldn't dare to enlighten you. Director Song is a manager appointed by the Lord of the Castle. During the course of carrying out official duties, regardless of one's realm and position, we will naturally listen to Director Song's instructions and arrangements." The old Taoist smiled silently. "However, in order to be able to carry out missions with greater rapport in the future, I think it's still necessary to explain the style of the 10 sages to Director Song. The saying of the battle between Taoist Hans Han and Taoist Diyun was really a cliché." Song Qingshu was really quite curious. As the leader of the 10 sages, what kind of different opinion did this old Taoist with the goatee have on this saying? "The world insults me, curses me, and bullies me. What should I do?" "Actually, it's very simple." Song Qingshu stared at the monitor screen and saw the old Taoist sitting cross-legged in the array pinch his beard and say tirelessly, "We just need to mess with him, play with him, laugh at him, chop him, mess with him, beat him, and wait a few years before visiting his grave." Song Qingshu, after saying that, the old Taoist stroked his beard in satisfaction. "This is the style of the 10 sages. It's just a beast. Regardless of whether it's from the Shao clan or not, we have nothing to fear." Chapter 118. After listening to the old Taoist with the goatee, Director Song truly felt that the 10 saints' brutality was indeed better seen than heard. Earlier, Song Qingshu had heard a rumor that the 10 saints had once been hired by an employer to take revenge on the Ghost clan. The reason was that they hadn't gotten an SSR when playing on Myoji. In the end, the 10 saints had prepared for 3 days, and on the first day, they had massacred the entire Ghost clan, not even sparing their young master, Shitendaji. Song Qingshu had thought that becoming enemies with the Shao clan was unnecessary trouble, and it would be best to avoid it if he could. But given the 10 saints' ruthless nature, it was impossible for this group of people to pay attention to the relationship between large clans and forces, and let this fighting lion go. Apart from that, Director Song also heard a hint of warning in those words. The general meaning was, "We can listen to you but don't let it affect our style of doing things. Otherwise, if we shed all pretenses of cordiality, it would be very ugly for everyone." Director Song wasn't a fool, and naturally understood the meaning behind these words. In the end, it was still a matter of realm. Although the modern cultivation era favored a society ruled by law and a hierarchical management system, there were still people who thought highly of their realms and despised authority. The 10 saints were typical examples. Song Qingshu's heart was as clear as a mirror. The reason why this group of people still listened to him now was purely because of the Lord of the Castle. Once he was abandoned by the Lord of the Castle, his situation would become very dangerous. After thinking for a moment, Song Qingshu sighed. Taking back the stone ghost mask is the Lord of the Castle's only request. As for that fighting lion and that youngster, seniors, please do whatever you want with them. But I need to remind you that since this youngster was invited by grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, he definitely isn't ordinary. Seniors, you still need to be careful when you act. He's just a youngster. Looking at his appearance, I'm guessing that he's just a servant that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal invited. We've been cultivating the ghost Tao for 1,000 years, what kind of demons and ghosts haven't we seen? He's just a mere servant, what do we have to fear?" The old Taoist with the goatee sneered and looked around. Then he slowly opened his mouth and said, "Junior Martial Brothers, listen to my command. We will cultivate together. Let's use this heaven and earth spirit perception array to gather spiritual pressure from beyond the sky and bombard this villa. If there's a living creature inside, it'll definitely be reduced to a meat patty. When the time comes, we can process these meat pies and make them into Laogan Ma meat sauce. This fresh meat sauce is the favorite of those ghost generals." Director Song and his subordinate in a suit broke out in a sweat. It was one thing to use spiritual pressure to flatten him into a meat patty, but he even wanted to make him into meat sauce. Sure enough, it was just as the rumor said, insane. Looking at the image on the monitor, the goateed old Taoist great sage and the other 10 sages had already begun to activate the spell formation. He switched the heaven and earth spirit perception array from a surveillance state to an offensive one. He could see that the image transmitted by the monitor was already unstable under the immense spiritual pressure. The Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array had been switched from surveillance to attack. Spirit Taoist Great Saint Mo's Heaven. And a one true. Spirit Mo Song the Taoist the Emperor that the Tao Tian had the like it said with the Tao the Taoist the Master the Spirit long said the same God that the same person. When the spirit pressure reached a certain level, the old Taoist with the goatee roared, "Behold my invincible might unstoppable." Then the invisible torrent of energy suddenly shot into the sky and turned into a pillar of energy that broke through the dense clouds in the sky. The youngster in this villa and this fighting lion will die today. The old Taoist with the goatee smiled coldly as he manipulated this huge torrent of energy to pour down from the sky like a formula. Song Qingshu stared at the monitor screen and broke out in a cold sweat. The lord of the castle had requested that they retrieve the stone ghost mask without alerting anyone else. This Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array produced spiritual pressure from beyond the sky and was a large-scale spiritual attack. If they couldn't accurately target the target and attack it, no living creature would be able to survive the spiritual pressure of these 10 soul formation cultivators. While Wang Ling was still drawing talismans in the villa, he noticed that the cinnabar on the table had started to tremble slightly. He silently raised his head and looked at the ceiling. Spiritual pressure from beyond the sky? He was a little surprised. He hadn't expected that there would actually be people who knew how to set up a Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array nowadays. This was one of the 4 holy arrays that had been used to fight the demon race back then. It seemed that these people had a powerful background. But Wang Ling didn't think much of it. He turned his head to look at the fighting lion next to him, which was already curled up like a snail in fear. Spirit beasts were more sensitive to this kind of pressure than ordinary people, just like how snakes, worms, rats and ants were sensitive to earthquakes. This fighting lion was very strong, but it clearly wasn't strong enough to face the spiritual pressure of 10 soul formation cultivators. The other party's actions were already very obvious. They wanted to use the invisible spiritual pressure to kill them, but Wang Ling felt that this technique was still a little immature. The advantage of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array lay in the invisible power that was gathered from beyond the sky. Even this clone of his could sense it, which proved that the other party's understanding and proficiency with this spirit array was still lacking. Just as this invisible spiritual pressure was about to reach the villa, Wang Ling calmly raised his head and blew at it. In the limousine, Director Song and his subordinates stared at the surveillance screen. A full 30 seconds had passed since the Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array's attack mode had been activated, and the invisible spiritual pressure from beyond the sky had converged and attacked. However, whether it was the car in the back or the villa on the screen, it was all calm without the slightest ripple. "Did you succeed, Senior Great Saint?" asked Song Qingshu. The goateed old Taoist narrowed his eyes and said in an old-fashioned tone, "They're dead for sure. It takes time for the invisible spiritual pressure to descend, just wait patiently." Song Qingshu, another 30 seconds. From the surveillance feed, Song Qingshu realized that something wasn't quite right. For some reason he felt that the goateed old Taoist's head was a lot bigger than before. Was it because the peripheral nerves at the base of his legs had died, causing his head to swell? Song Qingshu was alarmed. "Senior Great Saint, what's wrong?" The goateed old Taoist, "I'm cosplaying as Big Head's son. If you don't understand, don't talk nonsense." As soon as he said this, the goateed old Taoist's expression finally changed, and he spat out a huge mouthful of blood. The goateed old Taoist clutched his chest, his face trembling. At that moment, the head of the 10 saints had already swollen to the size of 3 watermelons. "This is the Blood Shadow Divine skill. I can spray blood to kill enemies. Let me perform for you to broaden your horizons." Song Qingshu. Chapter 119. There were many types of backlash. The Cultivation Encyclopedia Science section divided the backlash into 5 regular levels based on its destructive power. According to Song Qingshu's judgment, the goateed Taoist's backlash had already reached level 4. The backlash's spiritual pressure had gathered in his body and was unable to be released. Moreover, the goateed Taoist had circulated his qi to resist it, causing the spiritual pressure to rush to the top of his head, causing his head to swell. If he didn't seek medical attention in time, it was very likely that he would enter a persistent vegetative state. That was what the secular world often called a vegetable. Compared to soul formation cultivators, no matter how shallow Song Qingshu's experience was, he was still a nascent soul cultivator. No matter how much he feigned ignorance in front of these people, they could see that the goateed Taoist had suffered a backlash. The spiritual pressure condensed by the heaven and earth spirit awakening formation had been reflected back at him. Moreover, this kind of backlash only affected the master of the formation. Song Qingshu was horrified. Good heavens, even this could be reflected back at him. Who on earth was that youth in the villa? Before Song Qingshu could recover from his shock, the goateed Taoist had already collapsed in the carriage behind him. He was foaming at the mouth and began to mutter gibberish. Not good. It's the spiritual pressure backlash. Quick, what level of backlash is this? The people on the side all gathered around him, and the light of the heaven and earth spirit awakening formation quickly dimmed, collapsing on its own. Second Saint frowned, and after probing it with his spiritual sense, he was stunned. Oh no. It's level 4. Hearing this, the other 8 saints were also dumbfounded. Soon after, they lowered their heads and revealed expressions of unbearable pain. They couldn't be any clearer about what level 4 meant. Although this wasn't enough to kill him, there was a 90% chance that he would become a vegetable in the future. Even if he could wake up, his cultivation would be greatly reduced. Furthermore, it was very likely that he would never be able to cultivate again. For a cultivator who had once possessed a powerful realm, becoming a cripple who couldn't cultivate was even scarier. This was even scarier than death. After a long period of silence, there was suddenly a wave of anguished wailing in the rather quiet carriage. Who would have thought that this mission, which they had been determined to complete, would cause the 10 saints' reputation to cease to exist? The fellow disciples hugged the goateed Taoist's leg and began to weep. Eldest senior brother, wake up. Eldest senior brother, your Kings of Glory ranking is just a little bit away from becoming a king. Second Saint put his arm around the goateed old Taoist's shoulders and held his aged hands tightly. Eldest senior brother, we brothers are of one mind. You must hold on. Please be strong and live on. The goateed old Taoist narrowed his eyes and raised his hand with great effort. I'm not dead yet. As long as, each of you, transfer 10% of your cultivation to me, I think I can still be saved. In the front of the limousine, Song Qingshu and his subordinate in a suit choked with emotion as they watched. The scene of the two brothers working together to face the calamity together was too touching. Song Qingshu had always been a person who didn't cry much. Just as he was about to burst into tears, Second Saint, who was still holding the goateed old Taoist, stretched out his hand. He slowly placed it on the goateed old Taoist's neck. Afterward, she directly strangled him to death. Song Qingshu and the man in the suit were stunned. Senior Second Saint, you're? Second Saint shook his head in pain. I'm helping eldest senior brother escape the abyss of suffering. Even if I save him, he's destined to be a cripple in the future. But Senior Great Saint said that as long as each of you transfers 10% of your cultivation, Second Saint, Director Song, can you believe the nonsense of a dying man on his deathbed? Song Qingshu glanced at the image on the monitor. Before the Great Saint had died, he had opened his eyes wide and glared unwaveringly at his second junior brother. He had never expected that the person who would send him to hell in the end would actually be his fellow disciple. Song Qingshu was speechless for a long time. This was clearly AF*** King Unjust Death. This was supposed to be a touching scene of fellow brothers fighting to the death, but in the blink of an eye, it had turned into a tragic drama of brothers fighting each other. Now, Song Qingshu felt like his head was hurting. He already had no idea how to write his final battle report. Eldest senior brother, rest in peace. With a flip of his hand, Second Saint closed the goateed old Taoist's eyelids. Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you. Song Qingshu. You were the one who King choked him to death. On the side, his fellow disciples were still wiping away their tears. Second senior brother, you don't have to blame yourself. Eldest senior brother's spirit in heaven will definitely understand. Second Saint clenched his fists and stood up, his blue Taoist robes fluttering in a turbulent wave of spiritual pressure. Brothers and sisters. Eldest senior brother is already gone. The sorrow of the past can't stop us from taking revenge. As soon as he said this, there was a round of enthusiastic applause from all around, and his fellow disciples' eyes were brimming with tears. In the end, Third Saint calmed himself down and spoke on behalf of the others. We, the 10 saints, have never been lonely since we began our cultivation. Now that eldest senior brother is gone, we will naturally listen to second senior brother's arrangements. All right. Second Saint nodded. As he spoke, he recited a spell and a purple light surged from his hand. Instantly, the goateed old Taoist storage bag responded, and a thick and powerful Buddhist staff flew out into Second Saint's hand. Second Saint slammed the Buddhist staff into the ground, and a terrifying spiritual pressure swept out in all directions. A thick aura of the ghost Tao enveloped the entire area, making it hard for everyone to breathe. The other 8 saints were shocked as they cried out, "The night ghost staff!" Song Qingshu stared at the image on the monitor, his heart pounding like a raging wave. This was because the night ghost's weapon had been personally forged by Immortal Shipai, but because it was too evil, Immortal Shipai had sealed it away. It was a first-class immortal artifact, and not only was it extremely powerful, it also had a special function. Moreover, it also had a special function. After the death of each owner of the Night Ghost Scepter, their soul would be devoured by the Night Ghost Scepter, strengthening the power of the Ghost Tao. It could stack up to 10 layers. This allowed it to unleash power that surpassed that of an immortal artifact. Back then, after Master found this Night Ghost staff, he passed it on to eldest senior brother before he died. Now, eldest senior brother is dead, and his soul has fused with this Night Ghost staff. Today I am the third owner of this Night Ghost staff. I will take the place of eldest senior brother's will and avenge him. No matter who your young man is, I will cut off his head today. I will use his blood to water big brother's tombstone. After saying this, Second Saint gripped the Buddhist staff and cried out softly, "Ghost, come." The monk's staff paused on the ground, and a green-faced ghost general, invisible to the naked eye, quickly condensed in the void. Each of the ghost general's fangs was as thick as an elephant's tusk, and it was 4 meters tall. At the front of the cockpit, Song Qingshu and the man in a suit next to him felt their bodies tremble, and they couldn't muster up any strength. Both of them felt as if they were being held down by a ghost. Then, Second Saint pointed the Buddhist staff and locked onto the villa with his spiritual consciousness. The ghost general immediately bared its fangs and pounced in the direction of the villa with a fierce look on its face. Even though it was huge, it was extremely fast. Wherever it passed, the ground caved in and all the flowers and grass wilted in an instant. Inside the car, Song Qingshu and 9 saints were watching. But very quickly they discovered a frightening fact. Because the ghost general which had been charging toward grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa had actually turned back halfway. In contrast to its ferocious expression when it had charged over earlier, this ghost general's expression was clearly one of terror. It was as if it had run into some prehistoric beast, and was so scared that it shrank back into the Night Ghost staff without even saying a word. No one had expected the power of Ghost Tao to be released, and instead, it had returned the way it had come. The tremendous power of Ghost Tao crashed into the Night Ghost staff, shaking Second Saint so much that he convulsed hysterically as if he had been electrocuted. Second Saint gritted his teeth with a pained expression. When everyone came back to their senses, they saw that the 5 fingers on Second Saint's right hand which had been holding the staff had already been smashed to pieces by the residual power of the Buddhist staff, and his entire right hand was bleeding profusely. As the Night Ghost staff lost its support, it crashed to the ground with a crash, and everyone saw Second Saint's head grow bigger and bigger. In front of the monitor, Song Qingshu was alarmed. "Senior Second Saint, what's wrong?" Second Saint looked at his right hand which had already lost 5 fingers. "I'm cosplaying Doryman. If you don't understand, don't talk nonsense." As soon as he said this, Second Saint spat out a mouthful of blood with a splutter. Second Saint resisted the impact of the Ghost Tao on his body. At that moment, the head of this second senior brother, who had just become the leader, was already as big as 4 watermelons. Earlier, eldest senior brother didn't perform the blood shadow divine technique thoroughly enough. Let me show you again. Song Qingshu. Chapter 120. Wang Ling looked calmly at the ghost general who had charged at him viciously and then turned to run away as if it had seen a ghost. The Wang family's small villa was on the outskirts of East Huang Road, where there had once been a lot of wandering ghosts, but they had all been scared off by Wang Ling. Wang Ling remembered that the last time a ghost had charged at him like this, its spirit body had long since been reduced to ashes. It could only be said that this ghost general was lucky. It hadn't been scared off by Wang Ling, but by the fighting lion crouching next to him. After about 10 minutes of drawing talismans, Wang Ling had already made all kinds of enhancement talismans, which he then wrapped around the fighting lion like a landlady's plastic hair curlers. This was a fighting lion that had already been enhanced to a godly level by Wang Ling. With a full 20 enhancement talismans, the fighting lion's entire body was shrouded in all kinds of talisman light. Coupled with the talisman's special halo effect, when the ghost general rushed into the villa, it was almost blinded by this brilliant light. And so, after a full 3 seconds of silence, the Ghost General decided to leave first. Damn it. A strengthened fighting lion with 20 points. What the hell was there to fight? And then there was this scene in the car. In the RV, Third Saint supported Second Saint's limp body as everyone lowered their heads in pain. They had both suffered from the backlash, but the backlash from the power of the Ghost Dao was clearly more powerful than the backlash from spiritual pressure, and was at level 5 in lethality. There was no unnecessary struggle. After spitting out his last mouthful of blood, Second Saint fell to the ground. Blood sprayed all over Third Saint's face. Looking at the monitor image, Song Qingshu gritted his teeth in anger. Today's mission is a failure, it's over. All of this was too strange. From the surveillance footage, it had just been a teenager. Even Song Qingshu didn't understand what had happened. In the short 10 minutes since the start of the attack, the Grand Ten Saints had actually lost 2 of their top generals. It was clear that a blind attack was ineffective. They had no idea what on earth that teenager was capable of. The best strategy Song Qingshu could think of now was to retreat in order to advance. Fourth junior brother. Third Saint stood up, looked at the Taoist in pink next to him, and handed him the Night Ghost's staff. Take this Buddhist staff. From now on, you will lead the other 6 junior brothers. Everyone stared at the Third Saint. They already knew what this Taoist was thinking. The pink-robed Taoist took the staff. I'll listen to Third Senior Brother's instructions. Third Saint stared at the monitor, then at Song Qingshu, who was in the driver's seat. Director Song, the failure of this mission isn't your fault. First, we underestimated the enemy. Second, we stubbornly went our own way. When you return, please report this to the Castle Lord. We, the 10 sages, are very sorry for failing this mission. Song Qingshu was silent for a moment. Has Senior Third Saint already made up his mind? Eldest Senior Brother and Second Senior Brother both died a violent death, and I have decided to avenge them. Third Saint nodded. If I succeed in my revenge, I will bring the stone ghost mask back to you. If that doesn't work, then please find my body and bury me, eldest brother and second brother, in Jiangnan. That's the hometown where we once cultivated together. All right, I understand. Song Qingshu sighed. Third Saint opened the door of the carriage and finally got out. His white Taoist robe fluttered in the wind, and he carried an immortal sword with awe-inspiring killing intent. Before he left, Third Saint seemed to think of something, and he turned his head to look behind him. From now on, there may only be 7 of the 10 sages left, and they will no longer exist. Fellow brothers, come up with a resounding new name. After that, the junior brothers fell into meditation. Only Song Qingshu said weakly, as if inspired by this, Senior Third Saint, what do you think of the 7 freaks of Jiangnan? Third Saint, in life, if you're not on the street, you're on the road to failure. Wang Ling felt that this was a pretty good explanation for the 10 sages. It was very easy for people in high positions to be blinded by a single leaf. They could see the leaves but forget the forest, see the river but forget the sea. Over the years, the 10 sages' success rate in carrying out missions had always been perfect. They had established a good reputation in the industry, but this time, this record had been broken. The reason was that they had no idea what kind of iron plate they had kicked. The reason why Third Saint had chosen to stay was firstly for revenge, and secondly for investigation. At that moment, it was already evening. Outside the villa, the 7 soul formation cultivators had already left, leaving Third Saint alone. Immortal sword in hand, he approached grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa in Wuxia Garden step by step. His white clothes fluttered in the wind as he held his sword, his killing intent awe-inspiring. The security captain on duty at the gate thought this person was a little unfamiliar, and walked forward anxiously. Staring at Third Saint's kind eyes, he swallowed with difficulty and smiled apologetically. May I ask if this gentleman is the owner of this place, or is he here to pay a visit? Third Saint's face was stiff. I'm here to look for an old friend. Security captain. Who would look for an old friend with a sword in hand? But it was obvious that this wasn't to compare notes on cooking. The security captain was a little nervous. Although the security guard on duty at Wuxia Garden didn't have a high realm, he was still a cultivator. Third Saint's murderous aura was really too obvious, and the security captain already smelled trouble. Sir, if you're here to pay a visit, please tell us the villa number, we have to confirm it with the owner. Third Saint pointed at the villa in the distance. Haven't you noticed that there's something wrong with that villa? The security captain looked in the direction Third Saint was pointing, and was instantly stunned. Wasn't this the King villa of that great death-courting senior? Looking at the Taoist in white in front of him, no matter how stupid the security captain was, he knew that this person was most likely here for revenge. The security captain panicked and broke out in a cold sweat. "Sir, don't act recklessly, Third Saint. That villa is clearly built illegally. I believe you'll find it a lot more pleasing to the eye after I tear it down with my sword." The security captain, "Sir, who on earth are you?" Third Saint stared at the security guard and said two words in a heavy tone, "Lay phone." Completely ignoring the security captain's attempts to stop him, Third Saint strode into the villa with a golden saber. As for the security captain at the gate, he had already been knocked down by Third Saint's spiritual pressure, and was directly foaming at the mouth as he fell to the ground, twitching. This security guard was very lucky that he hadn't become a ghost under Third Saint's sword. Now, Third Saint's heart was filled with a vengeful rage, and he didn't immediately take the security guard's life. If this security captain had taken out his weapon, the result might have really been tragic. When Third Saint reached the entrance, he realized that the villa's main door was already open. Then, the youngster whom the Great Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array had monitored earlier slowly walked out. The moment Third Saint saw him, he was a little stunned. Because this youngster was wearing an azure school uniform? This person was actually a student? Chapter 121. Third Saint felt that he had seen this azure school uniform somewhere before. After staring at Wang Ling's somewhat childish face for a moment, it was as if a string had been pulled out of his brain, and he suddenly remembered that this uniform had been on the news not long ago. This was the uniform of number 60 high school in Peiyuan district. It had originally been an unknown, ordinary high school. If it hadn't been for the fact that Shadow Stream's first-class Red Ribbon assassins had been completely wiped out here, Third Saint felt that he wouldn't care about this school at all. Previously, Third Saint remembered that he had read about it on the news broadcast. After carefully recalling the details, Third Saint was suddenly a little stunned to realize that this school seemed to have become quite famous recently. The annihilation of Shadow Stream's Red Ribbon assassins and the capture of a female Gold Ribbon assassin seemed to have something to do with this school. And now, the youngster standing in front of him was wearing this school's uniform. Third Saint suddenly felt afraid. After all, there was no direct evidence that Great Saint and Second Saint's deaths from the backlash had anything to do with this youngster, right? Perhaps there was some big shot in the cultivation world hidden in this villa that even the Heaven and Earth Spirit Perception Array couldn't detect. Was he afraid? That didn't exist. He had been through hundreds of battles all these years and had seen all kinds of storms. Back then, in order to comprehend the Tao of the Soul Formation stage, he had copied old Demon Wang's methods and opened a woodcarving shop to carve airplane cups. Back then, this kid hadn't even been born yet. This was just a youngster in an ordinary high school uniform. It was nothing, there was nothing to be afraid of. Third Saint comforted himself continuously in his heart. Standing at the door, Wang Ling was a little speechless as he listened to this old Taoist in white's intense mental activity. Just as he was wondering why this old Taoist still hadn't made a move, he saw spirit light flash in the other party's hand as he threw out a wine gourd, which he gulped down several mouthfuls of. Wang Ling's heart trembled. Could this be the legendary wine strengthens a coward's courage? What kind of fear was there in front of Wang Ling? Third Saint felt that it was hard to accurately describe it in words. There was no spiritual pressure, no other means, and he couldn't even sense the other party's spiritual senses probing him. Just face to face, the divinity transformation stage cultivator had already lost the aggressive killing intent that he had when he arrived. He felt an extreme sense of crisis and had to boost his courage with alcohol. Wang Ling glanced at the wine gourd in the old Taoist in white's hand. This gourd contained an 82-year-old emboldening wine, which was very popular in the cultivation world nowadays. It was originally used by the cultivators of the older generation to fight against the demon race that escaped from the Gate Between Worlds, and it tasted very good. Although the Gate Between Worlds hadn't appeared for a long time, the tradition of drinking alcohol to boost one's courage before a battle had been imperceptibly passed down. Originally, this was supposed to be drunk when fighting a strong enemy, but the white-clothed old Taoist would never have thought that such an ordinary-looking dead fish-eyed, paralyzed youth would actually bring him such a sense of terror. A gourd of wine entered his stomach, and a drunken blush appeared on the old Taoist's face. "I'm going." A sword stabbed at Wang Ling head-on, and before the blade arrived, silver sword chi whistled through the air. Such overbearing sword chi was powerful enough to kill anyone below the soul formation stage, and there was no need for the tip of the sword to touch the body, the sword chi alone was enough to kill him. The old Taoist in white had good eyesight. If this youngster really was just a Foundation Establishment high school student, his sword would definitely cut the other party into pieces in an instant. Although the 10 sages all cultivated the Ghost Tao, each of them had their own magic tools. Some practiced with hammers, some practiced with axes, and some practiced with soap. As for the old Taoist in white, the 3 sages practiced with swords. Wang Ling instantly recognized that this was the 3-live sword art, which had been created by one of the 10 founding generals, Blade Master General Yi. This sword art was divided into 3 techniques: copper, silver, and gold. Copper focused on defense, gold focused on offense, and silver focused on both offense and defense. It was very obvious that Third Saint didn't cultivate a gold sword or a copper sword, but a silver sword. Wang Ling didn't move and just stood where he was, blinking hard. The old Taoist in white was startled by this youngster's action. Was he making eyes at him? Could it be that this guy was King Gay? But very quickly, he abruptly realized that he was wrong. Because before the silver sword chi he had thrust out could get close to the youngster, it actually froze in midair. Whether it was the sword chi or the blade, they were both blocked by an extremely powerful force and couldn't advance any further. At that moment, Third Saint suddenly recalled the youngster's blinking. It turned out that it wasn't a useless move. Instead, this youngster was using the strong wind created by his eyelashes to neutralize his sword art. Just by blinking his eyes, the strong wind created by his eyelashes had the power to resist the power of Third Saint's sword art, F***K. There was this kind of operation. Third Saint instantly felt as if his entire world had been struck by lightning. 2,000 years of cultivation had been completely F***king wasted in a dog's stomach. To make matters worse, Third Saint was stunned to realize that he actually couldn't use his sword art to resist the strong wind created by this youngster's eyelashes. That invisible wave was pushing the silver blade back at him, and by the time he reacted and was about to withdraw his sword art, it was already too late. Under the powerful invisible wave created by the eyelashes, this silver blade actually changed direction and came back at him with an unstoppable force. This counterattack was actually even fiercer than the sword chi he had thrust out. Third Saint had no time to react at all. His face turned pale with fright and his entire person was terrified to the extreme. Who the hell was this youngster? Fortunately, Third Saint's reaction was godly. Using all his strength to control his sword, he broke his right hand first, and at the cost of his arm, he forcibly changed the direction of this unstoppable force. The vast wave rushed into the sky, directly scattering the clouds in the firmament. The originally cloudy sky was actually cleared by this impact, and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. Wang Ling was still standing there as he straightened his school uniform, which had been slightly creased by the wind created by the sword chi. The old Taoist in white thought that Wang Ling was going to attack again, and was so frightened that he retreated several dozen meters. A few seconds later, the old Taoist in white spat out a mouthful of blood, which soaked his clothes. Although he had changed the direction of the attack, the residual power had still caused him internal injuries from the backlash. Fortunately, he had reacted in time, and the lethality of the backlash this time was only at level 2, which wasn't too serious. At that moment, the old Taoist in white still had lingering fear in his heart. Just the wave created by the lifting of his eyelashes had actually caused such an earth-shattering result. If he hadn't reacted so quickly, he would have already met his eldest senior brother and second senior brother, killing the enemy in the blink of an eye. At that moment, the old Taoist in white was pale with fright. This youngster's realm was far above that of the 10 saints. Even if another 100 soul formation cultivators came, they still might not be his match. Recalling the violent wave created by the blink of an eye just now, the old Taoist in white felt that this move seemed a little familiar. Legend had it that the #1 killer on the international ranking list, Teacher Killer, who was called Killer Taoist, had this unparalleled divine ability to kill the enemy in the blink of an eye. Could it be, this was that senior Killer Taoist? But why was this senior wearing a school uniform? Could it be that he also had a cosplay hobby? F***K. This great senior was his idol. Clutching his broken arm, the Taoist in white, who was drenched in blood, looked at Wang Ling and asked a little shyly, "Senior Killer Taoist, is that you? Can I have your autograph?" Chapter 122. Facing the old Taoist in white, Wang Ling took 5 seconds to compose his thoughts, and with great difficulty he came to a conclusion. This third saint had mistaken him for someone else. Teacher Xia, whose Taoist name was Killer Taoist, was ranked number 1 on the international killer ranking list. This wasn't the first time Wang Ling had heard of this. The last time was when that 36D Shadow Stream girl had attempted to invade number 59 high school. Looking at the old Taoist in white, who seemed to have forgotten all his hatred, Wang Ling was instantly at a loss for words. Who knew that when he blinked, he would be mistaken for Killer Taoist's unique technique? And what the hell was this old Taoist's bashful expression, like that of an inexperienced little girl, after confirming that he was Killer Taoist? WTF? Could it be that this guy was actually gay? He didn't want this twist at all. Seeing that Wang Ling didn't say anything, Third Saint was reassured and took it as Wang Ling's tacit approval. He was as excited as a primary school student about to go on a spring excursion. His smile was like a brilliant chrysanthemum. Senior Killer Taoist. So it really is you. Wang Ling, I've long heard of Senior's divine skill of killing enemies in the blink of an eye. Seeing for myself is indeed better than hearing about it. The white-robed old Taoist sighed, feeling somewhat ashamed of his inferiority. Wang Ling looked at the old Taoist's severed arm, which was still bleeding. Due to the aftershock of the previous attack and the old Taoist in white's excitement just now, the wound was gushing blood like a fountain. With this amount of blood loss, it was only at the level of a soul formation cultivator. If it was any other person, they would have died a long time ago. Senior, are you worried about my injuries? Don't worry, this little wound is nothing. This is all the result of my inferior skills. Wang Ling stared at the old Taoist in white and really wanted to say, "You're thinking too much." The old Taoist took out the medicinal powder that he carried with him and sprinkled it on the wound. The bleeding stopped very quickly. But the pain of his severed arm and the excitement he felt after confirming that Wang Ling was Killer Taoist made the old Taoist's face turn red and white like a flower, which was as strange as it could get. Although we are acting on orders this time, if we knew that Senior Killer Taoist was here, we wouldn't have been able to escape. We will absolutely not make a move. Brutality has always been the belief of us, the 10 Saints. Only those who are more brutal than us are worth learning from. Back when Senior Killer Taoist was all-powerful in the cultivation world, we were just little saplings crying piteously for food. The old Taoist's eyes glistened as he spoke, and he couldn't help but cry. Wang Ling, these tears were real, and so was his lament. Wang Ling knew that these were the old Taoist's heartfelt words. If there was the slightest hint of falsehood, Wang Ling's mind-reading ability would immediately detect it. Faced with an enemy who had completely lost his killing intent and the ability to fight at the same time, and who could only sigh with emotion, Wang Ling knew that it was unlikely that he would be able to make a move. What he found most strange was that up until now, he had never clearly expressed his stance on the plot. It was all the wishful thinking of the old Taoist in white. Moreover, it was obvious that the white-robed old Taoist had completely sunk into his own infinite imagination, completely unable to extricate himself. Eldest senior brother and second senior brother died in vain. If they knew that Senior Killer Taoist was here, I don't think they would have made a move. Listening to the old Taoist in white's account, Wang Ling frowned. To be honest, the current situation was giving him a headache. Maybe if he had simply gotten rid of this bunch of people from the very beginning, and then thrown the blame to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, then there wouldn't have been so many problems. But Wang Ling really rarely killed people. He would only do so when there was a real threat to him. This was what Father and Mother Wang had taught him since he was young. He was born with great power to protect himself, not to wantonly trample on life. Otherwise, what was the difference between him and those protagonists in novels who killed people indiscriminately just to feel good? After killing this third saint, there would be fourth saint and then fifth saint who would come to make trouble for him one after another. Wang Ling's frown was actually because he felt that there had to be a more satisfactory solution to this matter than simply and crudely killing people. At that moment, Third Saint's voice rang out again. "Senior, are you still worried about the stone ghost mask?" Wang Ling raised his head and looked seriously at the old Taoist in white, wanting to hear the other party's attitude. The old Taoist in white smiled. "Don't worry, Senior, we won't fight for the stone ghost mask again. When I go back this time, I will explain the situation to them. Even if I have to defy the Lord of the Castle's orders, I won't participate in the operation to seize the stone ghost mask again." These words were very sincere, and Wang Ling didn't catch any loopholes in them, so he nodded in satisfaction. Seeing Wang Ling nod, Third Saint knew that the other party wasn't angry, and heaved a huge sigh of relief. "After this matter is over, I will choose to retire and never participate in any disputes again. Consider it a little self-punishment for offending Senior." After saying this, he clutched his broken arm and bowed to Wang Ling. "This time, we have really offended you. Please forgive us, senior." Wang Ling. He had killed 2 of the enemy's generals through a backlash, and in the end they had turned around and apologized to him. At this point, Wang Ling already didn't know what to say. Now, Wang Ling's mood was very complicated. "Third Saint, since that's the case, I won't disturb Senior any longer, but before I leave, can Senior agree to a small request of mine?" Wang Ling was puzzled. There was a flash of spirit light in the old Taoist's left hand, and a marker pen instantly appeared. He handed it to Wang Ling, then slowly turned around and pointed at his back. "Senior, please give me your autograph here." After thinking for a bit, Wang Ling finally took off the cap of the pen and wrote 4 words. "Devoted to serving the country, signed, Killer Taoist 2. When the curtains fell on this chaotic situation, Wang Ling withdrew his clone, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already returned from the parent-teacher conference on behalf of Father and Mother Wang. The security captain at the door had already woken up, and the white foam at the corners of his mouth had already dried up. When he saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal return, he immediately grabbed his sleeve and said in a daze, "Senior Immortal. Senior Immortal, be careful. Some Lei Feng said he's coming to tear down your house." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. When he got home, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help being shaken when he saw the fighting lion covered in special effects. What had happened in the last 2 hours? After checking the storage of cinnabar in the villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal instantly wanted to cry but had no tears to shed, because Wang Ling had actually used up all of it. There wasn't even a speck left. He had mixed the cinnabar with black dust powder, and based on the current market value of black dust powder, Wang Ling's talisman drawing had instantly cost him at least 1 million yuan. This was definitely Wang Ling's bad taste. Chapter 123. Everything was over. The 10 Saints incident had come to an end. For Immortal Castle, the 10 Saints should be the strongest lineup they could bring out at the moment. Not only had they lost 2 of their top generals, they were also in danger of Third Saint, who had decided to retire from the martial arts world, turning against them at any time. In a short period of time, it was obviously impossible to organize another large-scale operation to seize the Stone Ghost Mask. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could take advantage of this time to happily continue looking for the whereabouts of the mask maker. When Wang Ling withdrew his clone, his real body was already on the way home. Feeling the mental strength he had spread out return, Wang Ling's gloomy mood instantly improved a lot. Wang Ling felt that this was one of the major drawbacks of the Great Separation spell. For him, the clones he sent out weren't just pure energy. This energy contained too many things including realm, strength, and mood, so he usually avoided using the Great Separation spell. That was because this spell would only make his already paralyzed face even more paralyzed. When Wang Ling returned home, he noticed that there was one more person in the house today. Even without using his spiritual senses, he knew that it was Lai Mengmeng. The pair of white rabbit slippers had disappeared. These were special slippers that Father Wang had prepared for Lai Mengmeng. Today, Lai Mengmeng was here for a follow-up consultation with Grandfather Wang. After meeting Teacher Pan during the home visit, the old man was clearly in better spirits than usual. The knot in his heart had been untied and everything was at ease. But Father Wang was still a little worried, so he called Lai Mengmeng over to help take a look. Thus, a certain someone had unceremoniously run over to freeload off a meal in the name of a follow-up consultation. On the sofa, the old man held Lai Mengmeng's hand, his face full of gratitude. "Little Song, we'll have to trouble you again this time." These simple words were enough to set Lai Mengmeng and Father Wang's hearts at ease. Because the old master didn't call the wrong name this time. Based on this point alone, Lai Mengmeng believed that even if his Alzheimer's disease hadn't been cured, it would at least be alleviated quite a bit. "Grandpa Wang, you're too polite. Next I'll ask you some questions." As he spoke, Lai Mengmeng took out a stack of paper from his backpack. These were some of the questions Lai Mengmeng had collected about Alzheimer's. There were yes or no questions, multiple choice questions, and brain teasers. The old man nodded cooperatively. "Okay, Little Song. Ask away." Lai Mengmeng. First question: when eating scrambled eggs with tomatoes, do you often worry about whether to eat the tomatoes or the eggs first? The old man shook his head. Lai Mengmeng noted it down and then asked, "Chocolate-flavored tea or shit-flavored chocolate, which would you choose?" The old man pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked, "All chocolates contain sugar, right?" Lai Mingming nodded. Yes. The old man, then my blood sugar is high, I can't eat either. Lai Mingming, also how can you ask this kind of question to the elderly? Nowadays many elderly people have diabetes. This kind of question is too unfriendly. Then let me change the question. Lai Mingming, Grandpa Wang, may I ask under what circumstances 1 + 1 = 2? The old man stared at Lai Mingming as if he was looking at a retard. Of course it's 2 if the calculation is correct. I say, little song, can you not use the questions from the Spring Festival Gala 30 years ago to test me? Although I'm old, I'm not stupid, okay? Your questions are too old. Lai Mingming, the old man stared at Lai Mingming and criticized him. I find that young people nowadays don't take a long-term view of problems. Little song, it's wrong for you to be entangled in the past and not think about making progress. Can't you develop a question that's at a higher level? If young people don't keep up with the times, how can they find a girlfriend and make her like them? By the way, little song, it seems you don't have a girlfriend yet, right? No, no girlfriend. Lai Mingming suddenly felt the urge to cover his face and run away in tears. After this question and answer session, Father Wang, who was next to him, could now confirm 2 things. First, the old man's dementia had already been completely cured. That glib-tongued Casanova from back then was back again. Second, after his face-to-face conversation with Grandfather Wang just now, Lai Mingming's pure young man's heart, which had yet to taste the honey of first love, had suffered an unprecedented and painful blow from the old man. After dinner, Wang Ling just happened to catch the broadcast of Cultivation of the People's Justice. Wang Ling hadn't used the small TV in his bedroom for a long time. If it wasn't for the little raccoon lucky draw this time, Wang Ling felt that he would never be able to unlock the dark seal on the TV. That was because it would be more convenient for him to use his wristwatch to directly participate in the program and scan the code for the lucky draw. Nowadays anything could be obtained through a wristwatch. Old people's products like the TV, which had already been phased out, could only be used for Grandfather Wang to watch Love in the Country. Early in the morning on Tuesday, May 25th, Wang Ling was in a gloomy mood this morning because as a die-hard little raccoon fan he hadn't even won an encouragement prize in the lucky draw last night. How infuriating. Wang Ling felt that something like the lucky draw was just like the probability of strengthening equipment in Penguin Corporation's games. Even if there was a 90% success rate, there would still be repeated failures. When Wang Ling arrived in class, grade 1, class 3 was gossiping as usual in the morning. The topic of the second mock exam, which had lasted for several days, had temporarily died down, and yesterday's parent-teacher conference became the new topic of discussion. Dopey Gua, the master of gossip in class, shared the following information. I heard that there was a vote at yesterday's parent-teacher conference. Someone asked, what vote? Dopey Gua replied, our school is holding a school activity for each class to sing well. Yesterday, Teacher Pan had the parents recommend songs for us to vote on. Then we have to choose one of the top 3 songs as our class's song for the competition. Saying this, Master of Dopey threw out a piece of paper, which was Father Gua's notes from yesterday's parent-teacher conference. A large part of the notes was about the school selection for each class to sing well this time. Everyone gathered around to look at the notes, which clearly listed the songs that had been nominated. The first song was The Brightest Star in the Night Sky, which had been recommended by Li Xuanjing's dad, Li Gohai. Second was Running, which had been recommended by Super Chen's dad. Third was Little Apple, which had been chosen by Little Peanut's dad, Big Nut. Everyone nodded when they saw this, feeling that these song titles really reflected the parents' personalities. Of course, apart from these 3 songs, there were also several other recommended songs that hadn't been nominated. For example, Songs of the East Wind, which had been recommended by Feather Lin's mom. With one look, it was clear that Mother Lin was definitely a senior sect leader among the Fujoshi. Another example was Master of Dopey's father, Father Gua, who had chosen Ich, which indirectly reflected the father and son's flirtatious nature. Sure enough, like father like son. Following the notes on the list to the end, everyone realized that there was actually another recommended song on the list that hadn't received any votes. No one actually voted for this song. Even the song, Ich, got a vote. Someone asked, who recommended it? Wang Lei. Wang Ling knew right away that this was definitely an alias that grenade-throwing senior Immortal had come up with on the fly. Super Chin had a flash of inspiration. Wang Lei? Is that classmate Wang Ling's father? After all, there was only one student with the surname Wang in the class. What song did he recommend? Pomp and Circumstance. As soon as he said that, The whole class instantly fell into dead silence. Everyone turned to look at Wang Ling and couldn't help sighing in their hearts. Who would have thought that under classmate Wang Ling's cold, expressionless exterior, he actually hid such a sultry heart? Chapter 124. It was May 26th on Wednesday in the 5th week of the semester. After Lai Mingming's follow-up visit last night, Father Wang could confirm that the old man's dementia was completely gone. The old man was still concerned about his vegetable field in the suburbs of the neighboring city, so he had left it in the care of Zhang San, who lived next door, as long as the vegetables in the field didn't die. Zhang San could harvest the ripe vegetables and sell them, and the money he earned from them would be Zhang San's own. But 2 hours before the old man was about to leave on his tricycle, something big happened in the Wang family. Mother Wang had been groped on the subway on her way home from grocery shopping. It wasn't just as simple as being groped, but the pervert had also pushed her so hard that her forehead had hit a pillar and her scalp had been cut. The most infuriating thing was that when the pervert had gotten off the subway in a hurry, he had kicked Mother Wang and pointed at the crowd around them as he yelled at Mother Wang, "There are so many people watching, you slutty hussy deliberately wore so little and you still want to frame me? In your dreams." There was a saying that the guilty party was the first to complain. This pervert had a tattoo on his arm and he looked like a gangster. Plus he had a rough and unruly appearance. For a moment, no one around them dared to stand up for Mother Wang. Mother Wang had never been a woman who took the initiative to stir up trouble. This was the first time that someone had pointed at her and scolded her for wearing revealing clothes in front of so many people. Mother Wang felt so aggrieved that she almost burst into tears. When she got home, Father Wang was so angry that his black-rimmed glasses fell off when he saw Mother Wang's bloodied head. The old man directly called the police. If there was a problem, the police were always right. This was the only cultivation police station within a radius of 50 li around East Huang Road, so it was usually very idle. Because there weren't many residents in the suburbs, there weren't even any cases of theft, which led to the police officers developing the very bad habit of laziness. From the time Mother Wang got home to the time the old man reported the case to the time the police arrived to take a statement, 2 hours had actually passed. It wasn't until Father Wang was a little impatient that the doorbell rang. He saw a police officer in uniform standing at the door with a small notebook in his hand. The police officer looked at Father Wang. "Was it your family who called the police?" Father Wang: "Yes, but it was my dad." The police officer glanced at the old man beside him. "And this is?" The old man nodded. "Yes, I was the one who called the police. I'm your grandpa." The policeman. The three of them sat down and Mother Wang poured a glass of water for the policeman. The policeman took a look at the wound on Mother Wang's head. "Is this the victim?" The old man was very emotional. "Yes. This is my daughter. She was groped and beaten on the subway. Wait until you find out who it is. I'll definitely use the 18 sticky clothes fall technique to kill him." Father Wang, the policeman: "Uncle Wang, don't be so agitated." The policeman took out his police badge. "Look, my surname is also Wang. We're from the same family. Please believe that I can handle this problem for you." Father Wang and the old man looked at the police ID number on it, SB 12138. Officer Wang was a little embarrassed as he explained, "East Huang Road is in the north of Shanghai City. For short it's called SB." The old man and Father Wang nodded cooperatively. "Very well, Officer Wang, if you have any questions, ask away." Officer Wang straightened his collar. "I have a lot of experience in handling cases. Our area receives 60 calls a year, and I'm responsible for handling half of them. Don't worry." After saying that, Officer Wang looked at Mother Wang. "I suggest you do a disability assessment first, or take a picture of the wound as evidence. This will be evidence in the future. But for now, let's take a statement. Madam Victim, do you remember the specific time?" Mother Wang answered truthfully, "It was between 4 and 5 in the afternoon, when I was on my way back from grocery shopping. It happened on the subway." Officer Wang nodded and made a few notes in his little notebook. He then raised his head. "This is the rush hour after work. It's normal for buttocks to squeeze buttocks, right? Maybe the other party didn't do it on purpose?" The old man took out a black iron kitchen knife he used from under the sofa. Officer Wang: "Fine. None of the above assumptions are valid. Then could it be that this lady's clothes were a little too cold?" The old man took out a whetstone from under the coffee table. Officer Wang: It's almost summer in Shanghai City and it's stuffy and hot during the plum season. It's actually very normal to wear short sleeves." Officer Wang broke out in a cold sweat. Then Madam Victim, apart from the bruise on your scalp, did you suffer any other injuries? Mother Wang, before the subway doors opened, that man kicked me in the arm. The old man continued, also this dog leftover's mouth isn't clean, and it has an extremely bad influence on my daughter's mental health. Officer Wang nodded and stared at the little notebook in his hand. Let's sort out the whole story. Victim Madame Wang was on her way back from grocery shopping on the subway between 4 and 5 in the afternoon when she was molested by some burly tattooed man. He shoved her once, which indirectly caused her to bruise her scalp. When he got off the subway, he kicked Madame Wang's left arm and verbally attacked and insulted her. During this period, the subway was completely sealed off. The entire crime took less than 5 minutes and the other party got off the subway. The situation is already very clear. Grandfather Wang, Officer Wang, what do you think? The experienced Officer Wang cupped his chin and nodded solemnly. Based on my many years of experience in handling cases, this should be a nasty case of subway groping in a secret room. Father Wang, Mother Wang and the old man, Officer Wang, if you insist on finding this man's chest, you have to go through the legal process. Father Wang, how exactly do we do this? Officer Wang, according to the normal procedure, Madam Wang was assaulted at East Huang North Road Station. So first of all, our local police station has to file a case and investigate it. Then, in conjunction with the Ministry of Urban Construction, we'll get subway surveillance footage and investigate the suspects one by one in the subway stations, which have millions of trips every day. Then we have to go through the legal process. Prosecution, first trial, second trial, Supreme Court. But based on my many years of experience in handling cases, this is actually quite difficult to handle. It won't be easy to lock onto the suspect. The subway traffic is really too high. Unless someone directly recorded it at the time of the crime. And even if we find the suspect, the whole process will take at least 3 years. Grandfather Wang was very stubborn. No matter how long the process takes, we have to file a lawsuit. However, the experienced Officer Wang spread his hands. I'm very sorry, sirs. At this point, if you insist on filing a lawsuit, then I can't do anything about it. I don't have the authority to file a case and investigate it. Father Wang, didn't you say you have a lot of experience? The experienced Officer Wang nodded solemnly. That's right, I do have a lot of experience as a temp. Father Wang. Chapter 125. There was a saying that it was better to rely on oneself than on others, and Father Wang felt that this saying was very appropriate in this situation. Of course, it was important to clarify that not all police officers were unreliable. It was just that the one Father Wang had run into this time was a little strange. In the end, this experienced Officer Wang was dragged away by Loopy Toad by his boot. At that moment, Wang Ling had just come home from school. He had just opened the door when he saw Loopy Toad unceremoniously dragging Officer Wang's boot out of the house. The experienced Officer Wang was flustered and exasperated as he shouted, "We temporary workers also have human rights." As soon as he said this, Loopy Toad used a divine dogtail swing at the man's foot, and then a dog punch directly hit his round belly. Then Wang Ling saw this person's body, which weighed more than 200 kilograms, forcibly fly more than 20 meters away. In the end, his butt ended up in the air as he came to a stop in a very queer position. Wang Ling. When Wang Ling entered the house, he found that the atmosphere in the Wang family's small villa was unusually low today. When he saw the injury on Mother Wang's forehead, Wang Ling's face swiftly darkened. The old man slapped his thigh. As soon as that brat came in, I knew he wasn't reliable. I didn't expect him to be so unreliable. Using a temporary worker to brush us off, is he playing with us like monkeys? Mother Wang comforted him on the side. Dad, let's forget about it. In any case, my injury isn't serious. At most, it's just a little grievance. In just a few seconds, Wang Ling had already used his mind-reading ability to understand the whole story. Very good. Taking advantage of the Immortal King's mother, and still King dared to hit people. You King got yourself into big trouble. Wang Ling took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then he used Memory Sketch to quickly draw a 3D portrait of that person from Mother Wang's memory. It was a slightly decorated young man with a mohawk hairstyle and a tattoo on his right arm. Staring at the paper, Mother Wang immediately identified it. Yes, Ling Ling's drawing is correct, it's this person. The old man nodded at the portrait, then turned to Wang Ling. Can you find this person? Father Wang, Given the range of Ling Ling's spiritual senses, it won't be difficult to find this person in Shanghai City. But I remember Ling Ling saying that spiritual sense is like a generator. The greater the coverage, the greater the power. The impact will probably cripple the entire power grid in Shanghai City, right? Wang Ling lowered his head in tacit agreement. Because Father Wang was telling the truth. Forget it, leave the matter of finding him to me. After saying that, Father Wang took out a lighter, lit a cigarette with a snap and put it in his mouth. He exhaled a long puff of smoke, and the light from his glasses obscured his somewhat gloomy eyes. As for how to deal with this mohawk head, Ling Ling, do as you see fit. However, you still have to abide by our Wang family's teachings, and under no circumstances should you kill him. It would be best if this guy was sent to the hospital, lying down for the rest of his life. Motherf asterisk Kerr. You dare to touch my woman, you must be tired of living. The old man and Wang Ling both trembled. Father Wang had already turned completely evil. Actually, there were a lot of unfair things in society. Going back a few eras, in fact, ordinary people had even less right to speak, and when there were conflicts between cultivators, basically all the problems would be solved with a fight. Realm was king and strength was respected. Strength represented everything. Now, in the spirit energy information era, both ordinary people and cultivators had legal checks and balances. But it had to be said that when it came to incidents like groping, the deterrent force of the law was clearly insufficient. Perhaps the vast majority of girls who encountered this kind of situation would choose to endure the disgust and get over it. Because the less trouble, the better. Of course, there were also girls like Mother Wang who bravely stood up and pointed out the pervert. But sometimes this wasn't necessarily effective. A large part of the reason was the apathy of onlookers. They would rather stand on the side and take pictures and videos to join in on the fun than step forward and say a few words. The most hateful thing was that the keyboard warriors on the internet would also throw the blame to the female victims without distinguishing between right and wrong, scolding them for wearing too little. In the end, even if they called the police, the matter would often be left unsettled. As the experienced officer Wang had said, there was a lot of traffic in public places like subways and buses. If the pervert wasn't caught red-handed, it would be nonsense for the cultivation police to spend days and nights staring at the surveillance cameras to find the pervert. Even if the pervert was caught in the end, he would only be detained for 15 days. Furthermore, if the pervert was someone who had connections, he might be let out after going in for a cup of tea. Thus, most ordinary people would feel very depressed and helpless when dealing with this kind of incident. Unfortunately, the Mohawk head who had been groping this time had run into Wang Ling's family. This time, Father Wang insisted on taking over the job of finding the person and wouldn't let Wang Ling get involved. There were two main reasons for this. On one hand, Father Wang was considering the city he currently lived in. Father Wang felt that it really wasn't worth it for Wang Ling to risk the economic loss of the entire city's power grid to find a scumbag. On the other hand, Father Wang felt that as a man, it would be too cowardly of him to rely on his son to get back at his wife after she was bullied. It was just looking for a person. It wasn't that difficult. If one said that realm and strength were Wang Ling's weapon. But as an ordinary person without the slightest bit of spirit energy, Father Wang also had his own special methods. Before he could eat dinner, Father Wang had already started to get busy in his study as he logged onto his Weibo. Father Wang rarely went on Weibo, and his last message had been posted half a year ago. The reason why he didn't like Weibo was that there were 4 types of people who appeared on Father Wang's Weibo all year round. The first type, trolls. The second type, trolls who liked to follow the trend. The third type, trolls who urged updates. And the fourth type, trolls who liked to follow the trend. Of course, in terms of overall numbers, the third and fourth types were still the majority. Father Wang subconsciously looked at the verified tag on Weibo. The verified information was, Cultivation reading best-selling guru author Wang Situ. This was to coincide with the promotion of his novel, and the people from the Cultivation reading camp had helped Father Wang verify it. Because he hadn't been on Weibo for a long time, when Father Wang logged on, the entire web page froze for 2 minutes because of the number of private messages. He glanced at the number of fans. Good lord. He hadn't been online for half a year, but his number of fans had actually increased by 1 million. Just half a year ago, Father Wang remembered that his Weibo fans had already broken 3 million, thanks to the website's operation. Now it had actually increased by another 1 million. Father Wang didn't know how effective these 4 million fans would be. But given the current situation, he had to rely on the power of his Weibo fans to guide public opinion and find that hateful Mohawk head. Thus, the power of public opinion was the most powerful magic weapon that Father Wang could use as an internet celebrity among ordinary people. So, let's test the activity level first. Father Wang lit a cigarette, then quickly typed a string of words and posted his first Weibo post in half a year. Good evening, everyone. As soon as he sent the message, Father Wang instantly realized that the web page was unexpectedly frozen again. When the web page recovered, the number of likes on this Weibo post had actually already exceeded 1,000 in less than a minute. Then a string of comments poured in. My God! Guru Wang Situ actually posted on Weibo. What Weibo post? Hurry up and write. You've only updated one chapter today. Please dress in women's clothes. I'll forgive you if you appear on camera as a woman. It really wasn't in vain for us trolls to wait on Weibo every day to catch authors. Haha, we finally caught one alive today. Chapter 126. Wang Ling had always felt that Father Wang's fans of his novels were very scary, and that there was a special kind of cohesiveness in them. It was like he had been born with this realm and had always been with Father Wang. Not only did Father Wang's Weibo account, which he hadn't taken care of for half a year, not only did his Weibo fans not decrease, there were actually so many people on the front line who liked and commented on Father Wang's account. It was to the extent that Father Wang's broken computer almost crashed. But this wasn't the main point. The main point was that Father Wang felt that it was time for him to display the power of his fans. After sorting out his thoughts and wording, Father Wang's fingers flew, and in a short 10 minutes he swiftly published a long Weibo post titled, Wang Situ in a Fury for a Beauty. At the bottom of the post, Father Wang attached a portrait drawn by Wang Ling using the profiling technique, which he had just taken with his wristwatch. The moment he clicked send, Father Wang felt like Li Yunlong, who had led millions of fans into Pinggan district to rescue his wife. He was inexplicably hot-blooded and excited. Because of the long content, the number of comments and likes this time wasn't as fast as the previous greeting post on Weibo. However, 5 minutes later, Father Wang's computer started to freeze again. It could only be said that Father Wang was in the end Father Wang. As the #1 godly author on the Cultivation reading forum's bestseller list, this long Weibo post could be said to be as smooth as flowing water. Not only was it meticulous in thought and clear in its arguments, it also revealed a husband's helplessness as well as a heartless accusation against an indifferent society. The gist of this long Weibo post could be summed up in one sentence. Brothers, my wife has been groped. What should we do? Countless comments came in like a swarm. Damn it. This mohawk head looks wretched. I didn't expect him to be so wretched as well. Is there any godly person who knows about human flesh? Human flesh, we must human flesh. I'm sorry, Guru Wang Situ. I shouldn't have scolded you because you haven't been updating well recently. I never thought you'd run into such a big problem. Repost and spread it for Guru Wang Situ. To be honest, Father Wang felt hot-blooded and even more touched when he saw these wishful thinking pleading for human flesh. Because this was the first time Father Wang had experienced the cohesiveness of his fans, apart from the fact that they subscribed to his novels. Wang Ling saw the number of likes, retweets and comments on Father Wang's long post on Weibo climb at a speed visible to the naked eye in just a short quarter of an hour. Nowadays, using Weibo was not the right of ordinary people. Many almighty cultivators also had the habit of browsing Weibo. And among Father Wang's fans, it wasn't just students who read novels to relieve stress after school. Very quickly, someone with a verified username, Exploding Sky Sect leader Su K, who had more than 10 million fans, left a message for Father Wang and forwarded it to him. When I'm not cultivating, I always look for good novels on the Cultivation reading network to relax and calm my Tao heart. When I once encountered the most difficult bottleneck, I suddenly discovered that Guru Wang Situ's Let Go of That Wet Nurse had accompanied me through the final bottleneck. This was a very dedicated author. Now that Wang Situ's family is being bullied, I, as the leader of Exploding Sky Sect, am now officially announcing a Heavenly Tao bounty on Weibo. If any fellow cultivator can provide information on this vulgar man posted by Guru Wang Situ, I will offer a reward of 1 million HNY, directly transfer it online. In an instant, Weibo exploded once again. A Heavenly Tao bounty. How long had it been since anyone had heard of this term? Back when the ancient cultivation world had still been in a state of chaos where hundreds of schools of thought contended, the Heavenly Tao bounty had already existed. This was a special bounty that only a sect leader or pope had the authority to issue, and it would create a chain reaction in a short period of time. Once someone was wanted by this bounty, they would become the public enemy of all cultivators, and everyone would have the right to kill them. Looking at past records in the ancient cultivation world, no one who was wanted by the heavenly Tao bounty had ever survived. But now, because of the restrictions of the law, although the heavenly Tao bounty wasn't recognized by the law, it was still an unwritten tradition left behind in the cultivation world. Now, although the people wanted by the heavenly Tao bounty weren't dead, they were so valiant that they could even find information on 18 generations of your family's ancestors. There had always been a joke on the internet that if someone was wanted by the heavenly Tao bounty now, they might even be able to clearly count the number of ashes in their urns. If one were to say that the heavenly law bounty order in the past was a kill order, then now, it was an ultimate and enhanced version of a human flesh search order. Thus, Wang Ling couldn't help sweating a little when he saw the message sent by the leader of Exploding Sky sect. Because he felt that in some sense, this enhanced version of a human flesh search was even more terrifying than killing a person. Very quickly, countless comments appeared under Exploding Sky sect's leader Su Quebec. The big shot is here. I didn't expect the leader to also read Guru Wang Situ's novel. We're kindred spirits. I support the leader of Exploding Sky sect's righteous outspokenness. Capture the vulgar man alive. Justice for Guru Wang Situ's family. In just 1 hour, Wang Ling saw that Father Wang had completely taken over the trending topics on Weibo's trending search list due to the surging number of reposts. Top search. Wang Situ's fury for a beauty top search. Exploding Sky sect's leader issues a heavenly Tao bounty top search. Women guard against perverted hands. Just learn this trick. During this time, Wang Ling also used his wristwatch to refresh Weibo. In the Weibo comment section of the leader of Exploding Sky sect's heavenly Tao bounty, he saw a lot of acquaintances from the cultivation forums and chat groups. Bueling Blade Immortal. I support fellow Taoist Su's righteous words on behalf of Guru Wang Situ. Guru Wang Situ's book is really good. I hope this matter can be resolved quickly so that Guru Wang Situ can update as soon as possible. Saiyan Jinren, damn it. What is the cultivation police doing? Do they really think there's no one left in the cultivation world? He even dares to touch Guru Wang Situ's wife. If this old lady finds out this vulgar man's address, I'll personally come to his door with a sword and cut off that guy's apricot mushrooms. Lightning Dharmaraja, fellow Taoists, please calm down first. If you can catch this person, sending him to me for electrocution should be the most effective method. I support Guru Wang Situ's legal rights. I'll also take this opportunity to advertise my internet addiction center. Grenade throwing senior immortal, I support fellow Taoist Su K. I especially like Guru Wang Situ's let go of that wet nurse. The 18 dragon subduing palms used by Zhuge Liang for a slam dunk is really too cool. Chapter 127. Grenade-throwing senior immortal didn't know that this all-powerful Guru Wang Situ and Father Wang were in fact the same person. If he knew that the target of his comments was the great senior in the Wang family's small villa, he would definitely regret it. But there were so many comments under Father Wang's long Weibo post that it was too much for the eyes to take in. The comments from the people in the cultivation forum didn't catch up with the first wave of popularity and were quickly drowned out by the rest of the comments. A large part of the reason why Father Wang's Weibo post had officially become a trending topic was because of Su K, the leader of the Exploding Sky sect. Most importantly, that message also included the Heavenly Law bounty. After the announcement of the Heavenly Way bounty, it immediately attracted the attention and support of a large number of big shots in the world of cultivators, most of whom were actually friends of Su K, the leader of the Exploding Sky sect. A person with the ID Evil Monarch Wuxia, and a verified profile as CEO of Cultivation Hardware and Concealed Weapons Technology reposted Su K's and Father Wang's Weibo posts, and said that he would add an additional 1 million yuan to the Heavenly Way bounty on the leader of the Exploding Sky sect. Evil Monarch Wuxia. This was the Cultivation Metal Concealed Weapons Technology's boss. It was also the only large corporation that could compete with King Billy's Yadali Treasure Research Bureau in the concealed weapons market. Indeed, due to the participation of the evil monarch Wuxia, the topic had once again exploded. In the short 2 hours after Father Wang posted on Weibo, the topic Wang Situ in a fury for a beauty soared like a rocket, and had already been read more than 100 million times. It was just like how Wang Ling's realm had automatically improved over the past 2 years. In his long Weibo post, Father Wang had clearly said that he had called the police, but unfortunately for various reasons, the cultivation police had been unable to handle the case. This also caused dissatisfaction among the people. If an official doesn't make decisions for the people, he might as well go home and sell sweet potatoes. The matter of taking advantage of someone was neither a big deal nor a small one. The point was that after Father Wang used Wang Situ's identity to expose this matter online, its social significance was clearly different. For a moment, many people on Weibo started to reprimand the Cultivation police for their inaction after receiving the call. Soon, this matter alerted the Municipal Public Security Bureau. In the middle of the night, Song Qingshu was writing a post-war losses review report, with a bitter and hateful expression. This time, not only had 2 of the 10 saints died, even the 3rd saint had betrayed the castle master for some unknown reason. Until now, Song Qingshu was still in the dark. However, the report still had to be written. What had been lost, what was the next step of the plan, and what was the success rate? All of these had to be calculated step by step. The only good news for Song Qingshu now was that the lord of the castle had not really lost his temper. Song Qingshu felt that given the lord's eyes and ears, he probably already knew that the people who insisted on competing with Immortal Castle for the Stone Ghost Mask had some background and weren't to be trifled with. If the other party was just Great Death Courting Senior, it would be fine. But the problem now was that behind Great Death Courting Senior stood a top expert whose realm was far beyond the soul formation stage. Who could this person be? Song Qingshu had no way of knowing. Right now, the only clue they had was the 3rd saint, whom they had completely lost contact with. All these mysteries could only be solved after they found the 3rd saint. Song Qingshu sighed. Pen in hand, he was pondering the wording of the review report when his phone rang. This red phone was an internal hotline that could be used directly to reach him. Song Qingshu looked at the time a little irritably. Who would be looking for him at this hour? After pondering for a moment, he directly picked up the phone. Who is this? Hello, is this Brother Song? I'm Zhou. Song Qingshu was blank for a moment. He knew too many people, so many that he couldn't remember them all at all. Originally, when he went to work, there was a phone book in his office which was full of numbers, and he could casually flip through it to find out who it was. But the problem was that he was at home now. Facing a person calling him out of the blue and calling him XXX, Song Qingshu felt a little tired. He knew a lot of people with the surname Zhou. Who the hell would know which Zhou Jie it was? Fortunately, the person on the other end of the line was quite self-aware. I'm Zhou Jie from Green Gang, the one with the big nostrils. Oh, so it was Zhou Jie, the leader of Green Gang. Song Qingshu instantly knew who it was. He was a famous bull-nosed gangster with big nostrils, and was nicknamed Big Nostril. Actually, as long as he said his nickname, Song Qingshu would immediately know who it was. What can I do for you, gang leader Zhou? Song Qingshu asked. Green Gang was the largest underground gang in Songhai City. When Immortal Castle had first been founded, it had had a close relationship with Green Gang. Before they had set up their own intelligence network, a lot of information had to be obtained through Green Gang. Over the years, the relationship between Immortal Castle and Green Gang had faded, and they only had some business dealings. Thus, Song Qingshu hadn't expected the leader of Green Gang, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, to suddenly call him. Brother Song, I really don't know who to call. There's something that's a little troublesome right now. I don't know if you've heard, it's something new on Weibo. Zhou Jie spoke anxiously for a long time, but Song Qingshu laughed first. Wang Situ is angry because of a woman? Is this a new meme? I seem to have read that online author's book. You mean his wife was molested? Ah. On the other end of the line, the face of Zhou Jie, the leader of Green Gang, instantly darkened. The person who molested his wife was my cousin. Song Qingshu's laughter abruptly stopped. Zhou Jie sighed. It seems that Brother Song still doesn't know about this. But this matter has blown up. It's quite troublesome. Listening to Zhou Jie's explanation, the smile on Song Qingshu's face gradually disappeared, and he no longer treated this matter as a joke. You mean? The leader of Exploding Sky Sect, Suke, publicly announced the Heavenly Dao bounty on Weibo and received the support of countless cultivators? Even that evil monarch Junxia increased the bounty? Hearing this, Song Qingshu couldn't help sighing inwardly. This matter was really troublesome. Was a Heavenly Dao bounty something an ordinary person could issue? The person who was qualified to issue a Heavenly Dao bounty was either the Pope or the head of a sect. Even if it could be revoked, it couldn't be done at will. The most important thing was that the leader of Exploding Sky Sect, Suke, was famous for being ruthless. He was an existence that even Immortal Castle didn't dare provoke. Song Qingshu, I say, gang leader Zhou, your cousin could have molested anyone, but he had to molest the wife of this internet guru? Zhou Jie, brother Song, I can only look for you. I only have this one cousin. Think of a way to help me suppress this matter. Song Qingshu was directly speechless. Do you know how scary Guru Wang Situ's fans are? The leader of Exploding Sky sect only knows how to use Weibo. Those big shots who don't use Weibo are probably observing him in private. Song Qingshu felt that he wasn't exaggerating to scare people. After all, even the Lord of the Castle had read Let Go of That Wet Nurse written by Wang Situ. However, the Lord of the Castle didn't use Weibo. On the other end of the line, Zhou Jie, the leader of Green Gang, gritted his teeth. How about this, brother Song? If you can help me suppress this matter, I'll tell you something that will raise your spirits. Song Qingshu thought for a moment, then shook his head. It'll be difficult. Just as he was about to hang up, Zhou Jie, the leader of Green Gang, said directly, I know that brother Song has been looking for the whereabouts of the maker of the stone ghost mask. I have a clue here. If brother Song can help me, I'll tell you everything. Chapter 128. When Mo Immortal Castle had first been established back then, it had relied on Green Gang to build its own intelligence network in Songhai City for a long time. Over the years, Green Gang's value in Mo Immortal Castle's eyes had weakened, and their relationship wasn't as close as before. Between the forces, there was originally a layer of mutual benefit relationship. Once this layer of mutual benefit balance was broken, the relationship would drift apart. As the leader of Green Gang, Zhou Jie was naturally well aware of this. Thus, out of consideration for Green Gang's future development, Zhou Jie had been quietly expanding his own intelligence network over the years in an attempt to secure the throne of Songhai City's #1 underground intelligence network. But Mo Immortal Castle's development had been too rapid in recent years. However, even if he couldn't win on paper, Zhou Jie had still found another way. He had inadvertently asked around about the stone ghost mask. He also knew that Mo Immortal Castle had been looking for the maker of the stone ghost mask for many years. Song Qingshu subconsciously swallowed, because this condition indeed sounded very tempting. On the other end of the line, Zhou Jie knew he had a chance and hurriedly continued to say with a flattering smile, Brother Song, you just need to think of a way to control public opinion and suppress Weibo. I only have this one cousin, so I have to protect him no matter what. Song Qingshu sighed. I admit that your condition is very tempting. But you should know that the head of Exploding Sky sect has already made a move. Even if my Mo Immortal Castle intervenes. Zhou Jie interrupted him. Brother Song, I can only rely on you in this matter. Just try to reduce the impact of this incident as much as possible. Of course, whether we win or lose in the end, I will tell you everything I know about the maker of the stone ghost mask. This was quite sensible, and Song Qingshu finally nodded in satisfaction. Very well, I'll try my best. After saying that, Song Qingshu closed the phone, and then fell into a dilemma again. Who on earth should he look for? Song Qingshu thought for a while, then finally picked up his phone again and quickly dialed a number. It's me, I'm Song Qingshu. Help me answer Mayor Ding's call. Mohawk Head's cousin, the leader of Green Gang, had just called Song Qingshu for help when the battle on Weibo continued. It had been 4 hours since the incident, and it was almost 12 o'clock, but Weibo was still as lively as it was during the day. As the incident continued to be published, Father Wang's trending Weibo post, Wang Situ in a rage for a beauty, had already been marked with the word, explode. When a weak woman encountered a lecher, how to respond and how to guard against it became a hot topic online. The netizens were reposting and expressing their support. Even the keyboard warriors were staying up all night. As long as they could find a sense of existence in the crowd, they would feel extremely satisfied. But soon, someone posted a message online along with a series of angry emojis. Strange. The Weibo post that I just commented on disappeared. Even the views on the upper right corner of the Weibo post that I posted before have turned gray. The netizen took a screenshot to express his dissatisfaction. Soon, someone commented, I thought I was the only one whose Weibo post was locked. So there are other people? *CK. I've found allies. I'm not alone. Why did you lock my Weibo after painstakingly typing such a long post? I support Guru Wang Situ. This definitely wasn't the netizens making a fuss out of boredom, because Father Wang had also noticed that the number of likes and comments on his post was continuously decreasing. After 4 hours of accumulating likes, it had clearly been close to 200,000. But when it refreshed just now, there were only 110,000 left. Half of it had been deducted. Wang Ling also noticed that a lot of the online comments had disappeared. There had been some people who had previously sent out human addresses. These addresses had yet to be verified, but they had all been directly deleted by Weibo on the grounds that they were prohibited information. It was very obvious that someone was deliberately blocking the news in order to reduce the number of trending searches. Father Wang waited patiently in front of the computer for 15 minutes, and noticed that the word explode next to the trending searches had already disappeared. Even his ranking had dropped 2 ranks in a row, and he could only watch helplessly as it dropped from first to third. In the study, Father Wang sat in front of the computer screen, and the ashtray on his desk was already full of cigarette butts. He had already smoked all the cigarettes in the pack. Wang Ling was wondering if he should use his teleportation ability to help Father Wang buy a pack from the supermarket. After all, this was the only thing he could do for his dad before Father Wang relied on his own abilities to find that Mohawk scum. But very quickly Wang Ling realized that he had been thinking too much, because he saw Father Wang get up and directly take down an iron box from the bookcase on the side. Inside were 10 black cigars neatly arranged. Father Wang directly lit one and put it in his mouth. Wang Ling's heart couldn't help trembling again. He was stunned to realize that Father Wang's dark state was getting worse and worse. In the study, Father Wang puffed on the cigar. Staring at the cigars, Wang Ling slowly remembered that this box of Father Wang's cigars had been a gift from a fan a few months ago. When he had signed for the express delivery, Father Wang had still been typing in the study, and it had been Wang Ling who had come downstairs to sign for him, so he still had a vague impression of it. But at that time Wang Ling hadn't paid much attention to what on earth was inside the box. After receiving the iron box, Father Wang had put it away on the bookshelf without touching it. Judging from the packaging alone, these cigars didn't seem to be very expensive, but the material inside each cigar was extremely special. Through his heavenly eye, Wang Ling could see that this single cigar contained more than 300 precious treasures of heaven and earth. Among all these treasures of heaven and earth, Wang Ling could actually detect a hint of auspicious dragon grass from afar. This was a spirit medicine that had been cultivated in Wuxia Nation, and had the ability to revive the dead. It was currently a special medicine used in the world to treat cancer. Just a little bit of it was enough to purify all the cancer cells in the body. It was very obvious that this fan had specially made these cigars. To actually use auspicious dragon grass to make cigars, who on earth was this person? While Wang Ling was still puzzled, Father Wang had already smoked half of his cigar. As Father Wang had expected, someone was now doing everything they could to block news on Weibo. Just now the topic Wang Situ in a fury for a beauty had dropped several places, and was about to drop out of the top 10. Everyone reposted again. Help Guru Wang Situ. It's dropped again. This Weibo is really trash. It's a shady operation. It's really shameless. I'll repost it. I'll repost it. I'll repost it again. I don't believe it can keep dropping. Almost 500,000 reposts. It's been stolen by a shampoo ad that popped up out of nowhere. Who on earth gave you the confidence? Piamu? Netizens all felt that it was unfair for Father Wang, but there was nothing anyone could do when it was obvious that someone was manipulating things from behind the scenes. Looking at these online comments, Father Wang felt his temper flare up. Manipulating things from behind the scenes? No way. Wang Ling saw Father Wang turn the iron box that contained the cigars upside down and open the lid. Wang Ling's eyebrows twitched. This cigar box actually had 2 openings and there was a small layer on the back. Right after that, Wang Ling saw Father Wang take out a black cell phone that he had never seen before from the back of the cigar box. There was only one phone number in the contact list on the phone. Without thinking, Father Wang directly dialed it. Chapter 129. At 12 o'clock in the evening, it was already deep into the night. Mayor Ding Yunsong, who lived on the top floor of a staff apartment in the municipal government office in central Shanghai City, was wearing a nightgown as he studied a foreign language with a blonde foreign Lolita. At that moment, however, he suddenly received an urgent call. Mayor Ding was clearly a little unhappy that his mood had been disturbed. When he picked up the phone, his tone was gloomy. Who is this? The person on the other end of the line only said 3 words, Song Qingshu. As soon as he heard these 3 words, Mayor Ding suddenly shuddered, and he immediately perked up and smiled obsequiously. So it's Mr. Song. Mr. Song, why are you looking for me so late at night? Mayor Ding, you already know about what happened on Weibo, right? That Wang Situ's wife was groped by someone, and the whole city is in an uproar. Song Qingshu didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Ding Yunsong nodded in all apparent seriousness. Of course I know about this. What he actually didn't know was that he was still busy learning a foreign language at this time, and had no time to pay attention to what was going on Weibo. The person who groped her is one of my little brothers. He drank 2 bottles of erguota that day and his mind was a little muddled. It was actually all a misunderstanding, Song Qingshu said. I understand what Mr. Song means, but there has to be a process for dealing with the aftermath. Song Qingshu nodded. I also understand what you mean. Within half an hour after this call, 3 million yuan will be transferred to your foreign account, and you'll be responsible for dealing with the aftermath. As for Wang Situ's family, you'll also have to pay them to keep their mouths shut. This will prevent them from spouting nonsense. Both of them were experienced people, and with just a few words, they immediately understood the meaning of this call. As the mayor of Songhai City, Ding Yunsong addressed Song Qingshu as Mr. Song. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the stakes in this. Ding Yunsong was well aware that if Immortal Castle hadn't supported him back then, he wouldn't even have had the chance to sit in this position. Ding Yunsong was silent for a while and finally nodded. Don't worry, Mr. Song. By midnight, I guarantee that the popularity of this Weibo post will no longer appear in the eyes of the public. After the short call, Ding Yunsong made a few more calls. The CEO of Weibo, the technical department manager of the municipal government office. Ding Yunsong called everyone who was related to this matter and could suppress the influence of public opinion one by one to express his condolences. It was not Ding Yunsong's first time controlling the power of public opinion. The first time he did it, he didn't know who to look for, but now he was familiar with it. Licking his dry lips, Ding Yunsong's forehead was already dripping with sweat. Less than 10 seconds after the call from the Discipline Inspection Department ended, Ding Yunsong's phone rang again. This time, Ding Yunsong took a look at the caller ID and was so scared that he almost peed his pants. It was actually Secretary Shah, the secretary of the Municipal Party Committee. As soon as he picked up the call, he heard a magnetic and serious voice on the other end of the line, just as he had expected. Comrade Ding Yunsong, what kind of mayor are you? Did you ask you to suppress public opinion? The higher-ups haven't given any instructions yet, but you're already one step ahead of them? Did you accept someone else's red packet to do something? Comrade Ding Yunsong, I solemnly warn you, don't think about stirring up trouble all day. Have you watched that TV series in the name of Cultivation? I think that the mayor who slipped out of the country in the first 2 episodes is a lot like you. Ding Yunsong was already too scared to speak. Whether or not you can keep your position as mayor depends entirely on your attitude towards this matter, understand? Speaking up to this point, Secretary Shah's voice suddenly sank a lot. This matter? The old leader is very angry. He got up in the middle of the night and flew into a rage. He said that the atmosphere in our Songhai city is so chaotic that we can't even hear the voices of the people. He wants to thoroughly investigate the corrupt practices of city officials. Next week, fellow cultivators from the Central Cultivation Anti-Corruption Inspection Team will come to our city for an inspection. Hearing this, Ding Yunsong trembled all over. Excuse me, Secretary Shah, which old leader is this? Mayor Ding, are you playing dumb with me? You should have already guessed it, right? The 10 founding generals were all his students. Which old leader do you think he is? Chapter 130. It was destined to be a restless day. In the wee hours of the morning, Song Qingshu received a text message from Ding Yunsong. Summarizing the message, it meant that the matter had blown up and attracted the attention of national leaders and big shots from all walks of life, and it was impossible to rely on the power of a mayor alone to suppress it. When he saw this message, Song Qingshu's eyelids couldn't help twitching. Why did he have to run into big shots who couldn't be provoked recently? There was the mysterious youngster who had appeared in grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa before, and now there was this inexplicable internet guru author Wang Situ. Song Qingshu had never felt so aggrieved before. While he was feeling gloomy, Song Qingshu's wristwatch rang. Brother Song, it's Zhou Qing. I saw that Weibo's popularity had clearly dropped, and it hasn't even been 2 hours. Why is it back up again? Did something happen? Zhou Qing, the leader of the Green Gang, sounded a little anxious. Song Qingshu rubbed the space between his eyebrows a little irritably. I can't do anything about it. That Wang Situ's background is a little beyond my expectations. Even our Immortal Castle can't touch him. How could this be? Zhou Qing was also stupefied. After a moment of silence, Song Qingshu said, "My suggestion now is to hurry up and arrange for your cousin to go abroad and lie low for a while. It's best if he doesn't come back for at least half a year." "Is the situation that serious?" Song Qingshu sighed. "You can weigh it up. All I can tell you is that this matter has already alarmed the 10 founding generals of Huaxiao Nation." Zhou Qing kept quiet out of fear. What on earth was the background of someone who could reach the 10 founding generals? It was 6 o'clock in the morning on May 27th, Shanghai Dahuang International Airport. A man with a mohawk's hairstyle and a mask timidly arrived at the airport terminal with a black briefcase in his arms. He spoke on the phone in a low voice. "Hello, brother, I'm already at the airport." Zhou Qing's voice came from the other end of the line. "Zhou Wei, I've already arranged everything for you. I bought the earliest ticket for you at 6:20. Take the green channel 10 minutes early. No matter who talks to you, ignore them, understand? Get on the plane first." "Okay, brother, I understand." Zhou Wei's face was covered in cold sweat as he hung up the phone. At the same time he was filled with regret. He really wanted to chop off his hand. Why couldn't he control himself back then? Zhou Wei tightened his cap, took out a pair of sunglasses from his lapel, and put them on, fully armed. And at this moment he suddenly felt a chill behind him as if someone was staring at him. Zhou Wei subconsciously turned around and found that there was a black cat looking at him from under the seat at the back of the terminal. So it was a cat. Zhou Wei was relieved. These days it was not strange for pets to appear in the airport, and many pets were spiritual pets with spiritual intelligence. As long as the owner bought the ticket, they could board the plane by themselves. Some spiritual pets with spiritual intelligence comparable to humans could even buy their own tickets to travel abroad. Zhou Wei felt that this ordinary-looking black cat was probably someone's pet, waiting for its owner under the chair. However, Zhou Wei still felt a little weird being stared at by a cat. He immediately got up and sat down where he couldn't see the black cat. As soon as Zhou Wei left, the black cat under the chair actually stretched out its hand to fold its ear, which was actually hiding a pair of wireless earphones. The black cat kept its cool and said in a low voice, "Attention, battalion commanders, target detected. Monk, how's the situation on your side?" "Monk, reporting, Commander. Everything is going smoothly." Jing Tan nodded. "Good, the other teams continue to keep an eye on him. Monk, hurry up and bring him here. We must intercept this guy before he boards the plane." Zhou Wei didn't know if it was because he had done something wrong that had made him overly sensitive. There were clearly 10 minutes left before he could board the plane through the Green Channel, but at that moment he felt like he was sitting on pins and needles as he sat in the terminal. There were only a few scattered guests in the terminal at 6 o'clock. Zhou Qing had specially arranged for Zhou Wei to sit in the VIP terminal, which was even more sparsely populated. However, Zhou Wei always felt that there were countless pairs of eyes looking at him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw an airport ground crew cleaning with a vacuum cleaner a dozen or so meters away. It seemed like this person was staring at him. Zhou Wei covered his face with a magazine and snuck a glance. He realized that the ground crew at the airport was actually an old lady. Zhou Wei shrank back in his clothes. For the first time in his 180-meter-tall body, he felt a trace of coldness in his heart. This was just an old lady and she was so far away from him. Her old eyes were blurry, she probably couldn't see him, could she? Zhou Wei was very nervous. In the end, after struggling for a good while, he decided to change seats and stay further away from this old lady ground crew. As soon as Zhou Wei left, the old lady crouched behind the vacuum cleaner and silently took out a walkie-talkie. "All units, attention. The target has moved. This is one of the few large-scale public reports that our General Administration of Harmony has received this year. Everyone please be on full alert. Old Zhang, how's the situation on your side?" "Grandpa Zhang, reporting to Miss Dong. Everything is going smoothly." Madame Dong nodded. "Good. The rest of you keep an eye on him. The target will be boarding in 5 minutes. We must stop him before he makes any further moves." Time passed by minute, but Zhou Wei felt that every second felt like a year. Finally it was time to board the plane. Zhou Wei held his black briefcase and, racing against time, rushed to the airport's green passage almost immediately. He didn't want to stay here for a moment longer. At the entrance of the green passage, a beautiful brown-haired, long-legged lady stopped Zhou Wei. "Sir, the green passage is now open. Please show me your boarding pass and passport." Zhou Wei hurriedly took out the things from his pocket and handed them to the lady. At the same time, his eyes kept looking around nervously. Hello Mr. Tom Zhou. Welcome aboard. I wish you a pleasant journey. Just as the lady handed the boarding pass and passport to Zhou Wei, almost instantly two large groups of people appeared behind them. It was a group of old men and old women wearing sunglasses and red ribbons tied around their arms. The old lady in the lead was actually the ground crew member who had pushed the vacuum cleaner. What was even more frightening was that there were dozens of cats next to the group of old men and women. A black cat stood at the very front with its arms crossed, staring fixedly at Zhou Wei. And behind this group of black cats stood a fat police officer. Zhou Wei instantly broke out in a cold sweat. It turned out that from that moment on he had already been monitored. Catch this molesting bastard. Madame Dong pointed at Zhou Wei and shouted. In a short period of time, a large group of cats meowed and a large group of old men and women pounced on Zhou Wei at the same time. Chapter 131. When Zhou Wei had been caught, he was still in a stupefied state. Zheng Tan's independent regiment and Madame Dong's General Administration of Harmony had jointly launched a mass roundup operation at the airport, and finally ended smoothly after 2 hours. Of course, it was Wang Ling who had released the news of Zhou Wei's escape. There was a big baccarat bar in the center of Shanghai City, and the boss of the bar was Zhou Jie, the leader of Green Gang. After Zhou Wei had been arrested, all the major news media had scrambled to report the incident at the same time. In the bar, Zhou Jie was completely stupefied when he saw the news. After receiving Song Qingshu's opinion, he had almost immediately contacted his contacts and won them over. After finding all the connections he could use, he helped Zhou Wei change his foreign nationality and leave through the Green Channel. But Zhou Jie had never expected that he would still fail in the end. This web novelist Wang Situ. Who on earth was he? When he saw Zhou Wei being censored in the news, and then personally handcuffed by a fat police officer and taken away from the scene, Zhou Jie felt his scalp go numb. There were many emotions in it. There was anger and there was also fear. Green Gang had been in Shanghai City for so many years, but Zhou Jie had never felt like this. He felt like a fish being toyed with in the palm of someone's hand. Silently lighting a cigarette, Zhou Jie dialed Song Qingshu again. Brother Song. On the other end of the line, Song Qingshu also sighed. You don't need to say anything, I saw the situation on the news. Then what should we do now? Zhou Jie really was at a loss. My suggestion now is to quickly relocate Green Gang. Even if it's to a neighboring city district in the short term, don't stay in Shanghai City. Don't let this incident affect your Green Gang and cause even greater losses. Song Qingshu rubbed his brow, feeling a headache coming on. I know you must be feeling very aggrieved, but we still have to face reality. We can't touch this person in the short term. Also, it's best not to try to investigate his true identity. Zhou Jie nodded and said, I understand, Brother Song. Now, whether it was Green Gang or Immortal Castle, they were all grasshoppers tied to the same thread. Zhou Jie was well aware that the reason why Song Qingshu was still willing to help him was because Immortal Castle was also afraid that if Green Gang was affected by the aftermath of this incident, it would affect Immortal Castle's development in Shanghai City. Zhou Jie's heart was as clear as a mirror on this point. Brother Song, don't worry, I'll immediately start making arrangements to evacuate all of Green Gang's main forces in Shanghai City within 2 days. Just evacuate as soon as possible. Song Qingshu nodded. Although we can't take revenge immediately, we still have a chance to win. And in order to strike back in this matter, we must learn to win against the heavens by half a pawn. Do you know where the chance of success lies? On the other end of the phone, Zhou Jie was silent. Winning against heaven by half a point? He cupped his chin and pondered for a moment. Finally, he raised his head and answered, It's Chi Tong Wei. Song Qingshu pulled a long face. Of course not. Zhou Jie, I'm slow-witted. Please give me some pointers, Brother Song. Song Qingshu, then hurry up and tell me where the maker of the stone ghost mask is. It's already been a few days, why are you still hiding it? You won't be able to produce any offspring with that information, trust me. Zhou Jie, this Weibo battle over groping ended with Father Wang's victory. In the end, not only had Father Wang defeated his opponent, he had also been crushed to death with one finger by the strongest fan whom Father Wang had invited. On May 28th, the 5th Friday of the semester, Wang Ling saw the following news in today's Cultivation morning news. First, what's the real reason behind the mysterious Eastern force behind Wang Situ's complete victory? Download the Weibo app and check it out. Second, a temporary worker has performed a miraculous feat again. Experienced Officer Wang personally apprehended the groping suspect Zhou. In the interview, the experienced Officer Wang said in a simple and honest manner that this was all the people's credit. Third, yesterday, after being chased and intercepted by people and a group of cats, the groping suspect Zhou, who was wanted nationwide, was apprehended at Dahuang International Airport. Experts say that there is a 99% chance that this group of people and cats are the descendants of Chaoyang City residents, Wang Ling. When Wang Ling returned to school in the morning, almost all the topics in class today revolved around the arrest at the airport on Thursday. Because of Father Wang, the groping case had continued to ferment in the last 2 days, and everyone in the country knew about it. Who knew where Dopigua had gotten the news, but he started to spread the gossip in class in all seriousness. Did you know? I heard that the suspect in the groping case has a very powerful background. His brother is the leader of Shanghai City's largest underground gang, the Green Gang. He's extremely powerful. When he was at the airport back then, he was so close to slipping into the Green Channel and escaping. Super Chin frowned. He can't even escape with this kind of background, and the municipal government is paying close attention to this matter. Doesn't that prove that Guru Wang Situ has an even more powerful figure behind him? Featherlin, it's so early in the morning and you're talking nonsense. In any case, I'm just concerned about what kind of punishment that person will receive after he's arrested. It won't just be detention, right? Lotus Sun shook her head and added, this matter has blown up quite a bit. This person probably won't be able to get out until he's locked up for a few years. Last night, the municipal government also issued a notice requesting our Huagua Water Curtain Group to launch a pepper spray for women to coordinate with the government's promotion of preventing perverts nationwide. Featherlin was instantly a little disappointed. That's it? I thought, this person's Tower of Babel would be chopped off. Everyone. This was 2F*** King Brutal. While everyone was discussing this, Dopigua suddenly interjected. I have a video of the arrest at the airport yesterday. If anyone wants it, you can look for me. It's 50 yuan each and I'm honest with you. After saying this, the whole class was deathly silent. Seeing that he was ignored, Dopigua looked a little embarrassed. However, Master of Dopey was Master of Dopey in the end. He immediately grabbed Little Peanut, who was on the side collecting his homework, and eased the awkward atmosphere. Classmate Su Xiao, I know you're very interested in my video. Do you want to buy it? Little Peanut pulled back his neck and broke free from Dopigua's unexpected bear hug. The expression on his face was incomparably disappointed. Dopigua was so frightened by his expression that he immediately let go. It's just promoting a video, you don't have to be so unhappy, right? Little Peanut shook his head. No, I was just wondering why I was targeted by a video seller. Dopigua, everyone. Chapter 132. It was still May 28th on Friday in the 5th week of the semester. During the Tao Talismans class, Teacher Pan announced something miraculous in class. Standing on the dais, Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses and said mysteriously, students, after careful consideration by the higher-ups and in cooperation with the municipal government, we've increased the publicity of women's anti-wolf education. The military training that was originally planned for sophomore year will be carried out ahead of schedule. In the middle of next month, there will be a 5-day military training activity at the Cultivation military base in Shanghai City. After hearing Teacher Pan's words, the whole class instantly boiled over. Whether it was boys or girls, the moment they heard the word military training, they would definitely be happy. Because during the military training, the school wouldn't assign homework. But as students of number 60 high school's elite class, the students of grade 1, class 3 who knew Teacher Pan's character very well, didn't show much joy on their faces. Because for Teacher Pan, since it was homework, no matter how much it was, it had to be made up. Wang Ling's group of people who had gone to number 59 high school for the exchange meet back then was the best example. Just as the whole class started a new round of discussion, 3 people silently covered their faces. Super Chin covered his face because he was crying tears of joy. As a hot-blooded sports nerd, Super Chin felt that it was finally time for him to show his talents. Wang Ling covered his face because he hadn't expected the group activity to start again so soon. He vaguely remembered the image of Audiobook carrying Secretary Dakong's 2 hairy legs the last time he had gone to number 59 high school. Every time he thought of this, he felt a headache coming on. After all, for Wang Ling, the group activity was the beginning of all the trouble. The last person to cover his face was Little Peanut. That was because he had heard from clan leader Yu in grade 3 that the school required a physical examination before the military training. The school authorities needed to understand the students' specific physical qualities in order to formulate a scientific military training plan in line with the military training base. Under Teacher Pan's gaze, the whole class fell silent once more. Sure enough, Teacher Pan cleared her throat and continued to say, "Class is suspended this afternoon. Student Lotus Sun will lead the girls. Student Super Chen will lead the boys to the infirmary on the 3rd floor for a physical examination. Everyone has to go. If there's no special reason, those who can't go will go home and add 2 more exam papers to their homework." Hearing this, Little Peanut silently withdrew the hand he had just stretched out. Wang Ling. Sure enough, compared with the physical examination, homework was the real root of all evil. Ever since he was a child, he had actually rarely participated in a physical examination. That was because with the quality of his mortal body, there was no need for a physical examination at all. For cultivators, as students of a foundation establishment high school, the physique of a foundation establishment high school was naturally much higher than that of an ordinary person. Wang Ling had always felt that the school's one-sided physical examination actually didn't have any substantial effect. In other words, they didn't check the places that should be checked and blindly checked the places that shouldn't be checked. Wang Ling felt that what the old aunties in the infirmary were really concerned about wasn't the students' physical fitness, but simply wanted to see how they were developing in certain areas. Hence, Wang Ling and Little Peanut both had headaches about the physical examination. It was just that the reason was the exact opposite of Little Peanut's. Little Peanut felt that he was too young and hadn't reached the standard of a normal boy, and that he would be laughed at. Wang Ling felt that he was too big for a normal boy, and would attract attention and attention. In the afternoon there was a long line outside the infirmary. Super Chin had brought all the boys from grade 1, class 3, and they would go through the physical examination first. Just as Wang Ling had predicted, a short old auntie with a slightly hunched back stood at the door of the infirmary. She wore a white coat and a pair of unfathomable reading glasses, and her gaze was like a searchlight as she scanned the crowd. "Be quiet, don't make any noise. Wait for Dr. Song to give you a physical examination." Dr. Song? Somehow, Wang Ling felt that this form of address was a little familiar, and sneaked a peek with his heavenly eye. F***K, this Dr. Song was Lai Mingming. At that very moment, Lai Mingming was wearing white gloves with an expressionless face. He rubbed some lubricant on his middle finger and checked the health of a male student's anus. As soon as the tip of his finger pierced into the skin, the boy revealed an expression that resembled Liang Fifan reciting a poem. Wang Ling. Someone heard a male student screaming inside and couldn't help but ask in the team, "What the F***CK? Don't tell me everyone has to go through it once?" The old auntie who was standing at the door to maintain order gave a kind smile. "This is just a sampling test, 2 per class." Then the old auntie glanced at a booklet. The students in charge of the sampling test in grade 1, class 3 are Super Chen and Hero Gua. Are both of them here? Super Chen and Dopey Gua couldn't help trembling. Very soon all the boys in class 1 had been checked, and it was finally grade 1 class 3's turn. Led by Super Chen and Hero Gua, the 2 students in charge of the sampling test, a group of boys entered the infirmary one after another. There was a strong smell of disinfectant inside. Lai Mingming's expression finally changed when he saw Wang Ling, but he quickly regained his composure and put on the evil white gloves. He pointed at the small bed in front of him to Super Chen and Hero Gua. "You two take off your pants and lie on the bed, then open it yourselves." The 2 of them nodded fearfully and walked over. After the 2 of them were in position, Lai Mingming closed the curtains. Through the shadows of the curtains, everyone could see what Lai Mingming was going to do next. Lai Mingming finished applying the lubricant. There was an evil and slippery sizzling sound from behind the curtains, and then Lai Mingming hit the bullseye with the Millennium Kill. Right after that, Super Chen's pained and shrill scream came from behind the curtains. Little Peanut was already so scared that he covered his eyes and couldn't bear to look at it at all. Wang Ling couldn't help sighing in his heart. In ancient times, there were people who sang about flowers in the backyard across the river. Today there were people watching from behind the curtains. Very soon Super Chen was done with the testing, and he tiptoed out from behind the curtains with his hands on his butt. Several boys in the class snickered on the side. "Is it that painful?" A nosy boy patted Super Chin on the shoulder. Super Chin glared at that boy and returned the gesture with a, "If you're so good, you do it," expression. At that moment, Everyone could see that Lai Mingming had already changed into a new pair of white gloves and had applied the lubricant on them. But this time the scream that everyone had expected didn't come. It could only be said that as the successor of the 5 pens, Master of Dopey was in the end Master of Dopey. They immediately questioned Lai Mingming's level and ability with a professional eye. Behind the curtains, Dopey Gua sighed. "You're poking in the wrong place? It's very easy to get hurt." Everyone. "What the hell? Why are you so familiar with it?" "Dopey Gua, you're an intern, right? Lie down, I'll teach you." Wang Ling, as an ordinary person when facing a foundation establishment stage cultivator, he would not be able to do anything. Lai Mingming's thin and weak body couldn't resist at all, and he was directly pressed down on the bed by Dopey Gua. When he felt Dopey Gua's white gloves poking into his backyard, Lai Mingming was already in tears. Damn. It really wasn't King easy to earn extra money these days. Chapter 133. Because the General Cultivation Hospital didn't have enough manpower for the pre-military training physical examination, Lai Mingming had been recruited online as a temporary worker. He was only in charge of the posterior flower sampling test. Apart from that, there were also routine physical examinations such as height, weight, blood and urine tests. Of all these dazzling tests, nothing was more painful than the so-called physical examination, on the physical examination form. By standing on a scanner and using ionizing light technology, one could quickly detect bone density, bone condition and the development of the boy's little brothers. This was the part that Little Peanut was most afraid of. During the blood test, Wang Ling felt very embarrassed, because when the female nurse had inserted a needle into his finger, the needle had actually gone askew. These needles had been specially customized by the General Cultivation Hospital, and could easily penetrate the flesh of a foundation establishment cultivator. Not believing it, the female nurse had inserted 2 more needles in a row, but both of them had gone askew. Just as the female nurse was about to complain to the head nurse about the quality of the needles, Wang Ling stuck his finger into his mouth and bit it open. The female nurse. Wang Ling had managed to get through the first few parts without any mishaps and had dealt with most of them. When it came to the final physical examination, Wang Ling was really nervous about it. Before science and technology had matured, specialized orthopedic experts would come to schools to perform physical examinations on cultivation school students. Furthermore, these old experts had one thing in common, and that was that they were very good at visual inspection, which had probably been passed down from Madame Dong. Without needing a ruler at all, they could tell at a glance how long a boy's little brother was and how it was developing. However, with the rapid development of science and technology in the last decade or so, it was clearly much more efficient than before. What used to be the most troublesome part of the physical examination was now all that was needed to stand on a machine and shine an ionizing light on it. Little Peanut was very nervous and restless, his eyes drifting about as his mind wandered. Because of his physique from a young age, Little Peanut's physique was a lot worse than that of normal foundation establishment students. Even his little brother seemed to be a little shorter than that of normal boys, which had haunted Little Peanut ever since he was a child. So much so that he usually only dared to go to the bathroom when there was no one around. In this respect, Little Peanut was actually very similar to Wang Ling. But the reason why he didn't go to the toilet was because he was too big. Super Chen and Dopey Gua, these 2 thick-skinned fellows, took the lead and one after another they stood on the ion machine and finished their measurements. On the other side, 5 meters away, 2 female nurses were staring at the screen. The expressions on their faces were as calm as if they had been through a storm. Soon, it was Little Peanut's turn. Standing on the plasma machine, Little Peanut closed his eyes a little fearfully and blushed. The ionic light slowly shone down from the top of Little Peanut's head. At that moment, Wang Ling, who was behind Little Peanut in line, secretly wagged his finger. Among the 3,000 great daos, there was a technique called grafting that allowed one to graft a part of one's body onto another. In order not to draw too much attention, Wang Ling felt that he could totally cooperate with Little Peanut. It was just that once the flower grafting spell was used and the spell was undone, a third of the body parts couldn't be retrieved. Very quickly, the beam of light shone on the middle of Little Peanut's body. All the boys saw that the 2 nurses in front of the screen were covering their mouths, revealing a shocked expression as if they had seen a ferocious beast. Holy shit. This was too big. How could such a small boy have such a thick and muscular part? Little Peanut slowly opened his eyes and somehow felt that something wasn't right. He saw the gazes of the 2 female nurses, and it was as if they wanted to eat him up, making him feel uneasy all over. 20 minutes later, everyone was done with their measurements. The physical examination report was quickly compiled by the computer and printed out. Everyone had a copy. After school, Little Peanut cringed as he looked at the report in his hand. He was shocked. 37 centimeters? F***K. This had already completely surpassed Europe and America, hadn't it? This was basically a donkey's penis, wasn't it? Was he that big? Little Peanut unzipped his pants in disbelief to take a peek, and was dumbfounded. Although it wasn't as exaggerated as the 37 centimeters on the physical examination report, it was clear that his little brother was already at the level of a normal boy, and even a little above average. Why was this happening? Student Su Xiao stood up from his seat in astonishment. This was the first time he had felt this heavy feeling, which he had never felt before. He was so moved that tears gushed out. Little Peanut had actually really grown up. Had the wish he had made on his birthday really come true? Thank you so much, Almighty Cultivation God. Wang Ling. You got lucky. When Wang Ling returned home that night, he found that Mother Wang and the old man weren't there, and the kitchen was empty. Only the Wang father and son and Loopy Toad were left in the huge Wang family. The groping incident was currently in the limelight, and Mother Wang was the heroine of a story for the first time. All the major news media reporters were doing everything they could to create some juicy news about her. Whether it was Father Wang or Mother Wang, they couldn't bear to be disturbed. So after the couple discussed it, Father Wang decided to let Mother Wang and the old man take his salary card and quickly go on a holiday to relax and avoid the limelight. He didn't even take his luggage with him when he left. He could just buy clothes and daily necessities on the way. For the first time, Wang Ling felt that Father Wang was so rich. Sure enough, a man who doted on his wife was the most handsome. But with Mother Wang and the old man gone, dinner became a problem. In theory, Wang Ling didn't need to eat at all, and could rely on absorbing the spirit qi of heaven and earth every day to maintain his bodily functions. But after so many years, dinner had almost become a habit for Wang Ling. If he didn't eat dinner, it would always feel a little pointless. There was no way to order takeout. The Wang family's small villa was too remote, and wasn't within the range of takeout services at all. The only way now was for the father and son pair to take Loopy Toad out to look for food. Father Wang searched for the nearest business near East Huang Road. There was only one shop within 800 kilometers of East Huang Road called Midnight Dining Hall. Father Wang frowned because he quickly found that this shop's rating was a little low. The overall rating on the Dubon Food Review website was actually only 2.6, and this was AF*** King 10-point scale. When they opened the menu provided by the shop, both father and son were stunned. A small bowl of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles, a medium bowl of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles, a large bowl of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles, and then Chapter 134. If it was a normal cultivator, it would take about 20 minutes to fly 800 kilometers using the sword riding technique. Although it was a little far, it was just a teleportation distance for Wang Ling. He had Father Wang and Loopy Toad stick close to him, and 2 people and 1 dog arrived at the restaurant's entrance in a flash. This was a restaurant that looked a little old-fashioned. Its walls were made of wood and brick, and it gave off a dangerous feeling that it was on the verge of collapsing in the wind. The words Midnight Dining Hall were written on a horizontal board at the entrance. The corners of the board were already a little cracked, and the owner had carelessly stuck 2 pieces of all-purpose adhesive tape on it to mend the holes. This made the restaurant look even older than the old buildings left behind in the Xiao family compound. When they arrived at the restaurant's entrance, Wang Ling suddenly remembered that he had passed by this place before on his way to school. But because it had been too fast, he hadn't been able to see it clearly. But today Wang Ling finally realized something. It turned out that this wasn't a public toilet. Don't be fooled by how shabby this restaurant looks. The more shabby it is, the more delicious the food. Wasn't that how that popular Chef God's little store came to be? The father and son stood at the entrance of the restaurant, and Father Wang shrunk back in the cool breeze. Somehow Wang Ling felt that he didn't sound very confident. The restaurant didn't have a door, and there was a tattered, sun-faded rag hanging at the entrance. Above the restaurant was an old-fashioned iron shutter door, which had to be pulled down with a long-handled hook by the side of the door before it could be locked every day. 2 people and 1 dog pulled open the rag and entered. The restaurant was so small that it could only fit 4 wooden tables with plastic stools on the sides. When Wang Ling entered, he saw the owner leaning against the kitchen door, smoking a cigarette. The owner had a buzz cut and was in his early 40s. His cheeks were unhealthily sunken and his eyes were very deep. There was also a 10-centimeter-long knife scar running from his forehead through his right eye to his neck. It was clear that this was a man with a story. "Hey, you're quite early today." Seeing that customers had arrived, the owner hurriedly stubbed out his cigarette, pointed to the handwritten menu hanging in the middle of the restaurant, and put his hands on his hips. "Apart from Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles, you can order whatever you want as long as I know how to make it." "Father Wang, do you have fish ball noodles?" The boss shook his head. "We don't have any coarse flour." "Father Wang, what about fish ball rice noodles?" The boss shook his head again. "No fish balls." "Father Wang, if you don't have anything, then why did you open a shop?" The boss raised his eyebrows and said rather righteously, "It's not that there's nothing but that you don't know how to order. Back then Master taught me cooking and I was his proudest disciple." "Father Wang, Wang Ling. If your Shifu saw that his proudest disciple was actually working in such a rotten shop, he would definitely choose to die, right?" Father Wang really didn't know what to order, so he simply looked at the menu and said, "Then let's have 2 medium bowls of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles first." The boss nodded without saying a word. She turned around and went to the kitchen to prepare. Right after that, Wang Ling saw the boss turn on the range hood, which rumbled non-stop like a tractor. About 10 minutes later, 2 bowls of beef noodles with pickled cabbage were ready. The boss placed a bowl in front of the Wang father and son. He had also thoughtfully prepared a plate with a shaved beef bone on it, which had been specially prepared for Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad looked at the beef bone disinterestedly, and then contentedly licked the fly on it into its mouth. The boss. What surprised Wang Ling was that these 2 bowls of noodles looked pretty good. The bowls were a little old but they weren't dirty. Father Wang slurped up a mouthful of noodles then raised his head in surprise. It actually tasted pretty good. The only flaw was that the pickled cabbage wasn't sour enough. Father Wang frowned. "Boss, your pickled cabbage doesn't taste like it was pickled in Laotan? It's not sour at all." The boss asked strangely, "Who told you it was pickled in Laotan?" Father Wang pointed to the sign. "Can you read? Laotan pickled cabbage." "Let me tell you, I'm also a cultured person. Please give me a reasonable explanation, otherwise you're deceiving the consumers." The boss pursed his lips. "I'm Tan Simon, people who know me well call me Old Tan. I made this beef noodles with pickled cabbage. So I named it Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles. Does this make sense?" Wang Ling and Father Wang. The Wang father and son were unexpectedly unable to refute this explanation. It was now almost 8 o'clock in the evening, and the Wang father and son were halfway through their noodles when there was suddenly movement at the door. Wang Ling saw that it was a young man with slanted bangs and a broken guitar on his back. He looked like a pretty down-and-out vagabond singer. Because he couldn't afford to rent a house in the city, the young man could only rent a house in the suburbs with the little money he earned in the city every day. Wang Ling had instantly read all of this from the young man's mind through memory reading. It wasn't that Wang Ling had deliberately read the young man's mind, but that it was a fairly natural way of thinking. Some people always like to write their emotions on their faces. It was very easy for Wang Ling to read the memories of this kind of person. If it was a man with a story such as Old Antique or the boss standing in the kitchen right now, Wang Ling would never know what their pasts were unless he took the initiative to read them. It was very obvious that this young man was already a regular customer of the restaurant. When Boss Tan saw the young man, he directly nodded slightly and asked in a slightly magnetic voice, "Same old rules?" The young man nodded silently, carefully leaned his guitar against the corner of the wall, and found a place to sit down. Although the young man didn't speak, it was as if the boss's eyes could see through his thoughts. "I know you participated in the talent show today. It looks like it didn't go very well?" The young man lowered his head. In the kitchen, the boss prepared dinner for the young man as he comforted him. "Young man, you still have a chance. It's fine. Look, we also have a new customer today. Why don't you sing the song you participated in the talent show and let everyone listen to it?" The young man suddenly stood up a little excitedly. "Really, can I?" The Wang father and son put down their chopsticks at the same time and nodded seriously. Listening to a down-and-out vagabond singer singing in a deserted village restaurant was probably something Wang Ling would never experience again in his life. It was a very strange feeling. The young man bowed deeply to the boss and the Wang father and son, then cleared his throat and began to sing. You stirred up the wind and clouds, swept me away, you lifted the rags, abandoned me, Father Wang, the boss. Little brother, your heavenly silkworm potato shredded rice is ready, you should eat first. Chapter 135. Wang Ling's first impression of this vagabond singer was that he had a strange accent from who knew where. Of course, putting these issues aside, Wang Ling felt that the young man sang pretty well overall. At least his voice was still in tune, but if he wanted to become a true professional singer through a talent show, this young man was clearly far from good. Wang Ling's knowledge of music was very limited, and he was just an amateur who knew a little about the guitar, so he couldn't give a more professional evaluation of the young man's voice. But when it came to how to stand out in a talent show, Wang Ling felt that there were several essential factors. First, he didn't have to be particularly handsome, but at least he had to be pleasing to the eye. Second, his voice didn't have to be particularly professional, but at least it had to be recognizable. It was useless to just sing in tune. Finally, the third and most important point was that his life experience must be miserable. And the more miserable, the better. It would be best if he could move the audience and the judges to tears just by listening to the first 10 or so words of his story. Unfortunately, this young man didn't have any of the above conditions. As a vagabond singer, Tang Yuning clearly didn't have any plans for his unrestrained appearance, and at first glance he gave off a dirty feeling. Furthermore, this young man's life experience couldn't be considered miserable at all. At most, he could be considered a poor singer who persisted in his musical dream. There were too many people like this in Wuxia Nation. If you wanted to enter the limelight through a talent show, at the very least, someone in your family had to be terminally ill. Wang Ling put half a mouthful of beef in his mouth as he fiercely criticized the current talent show in his heart. But the young man's eyes were red as he stared at the heavenly silkworm potato shredded rice in front of him. As expected, am I not suited to be a singer at all? His voice was very low and there was a sense of inferiority in it, but everyone heard it. It was very obvious that the failure of today's talent show had been a huge blow to the young man. Boss Tan turned off the roaring range hood and wiped his greasy hands with a rag. He slowly walked over to the young man and patted his thin shoulder, which had a distinct collarbone. Cheer up, little Tang. Who knew if it was because he was a chef all year round, but Boss Tan's physique was very strong, especially when compared with the young man's. Wang Ling had no doubt that if Boss Tan used a little more strength, he could directly smash the young man's shoulder bones. The owner of this shop was not an ordinary person. His cultivation was at least at the golden core stage. Wang Ling had noticed this as soon as he entered the room. Boss Tan looked at Tang Yuning and continued to comfort him. There was once a great man who said that the birth of a genius required 99% hard work and 1% talent. Maybe you didn't work hard enough. So don't give up. The young man raised his head and looked at the boss as if he had seen a glimmer of hope. Is it true? But as soon as Boss Tan said this, Father Wang instinctively activated his poisonous tongue mode and quietly added, do you know that there's actually a second half to this famous saying? Although only 1% talent is required, 1% talent is the most important. Boss Tan, Tang Yuning was about to cry. Why did you have to say it out loud? Wang Ling. My heart hurts, buddy. It could only be said that Father Wang's poisonous tongue was getting better and better. This venomous tongue attack left the young man completely defenseless. Boss Tan felt very helpless about this. But it was clear that Father Wang didn't care about his poisonous tongue at all. Everyone had heard the saying, nothing in the world is difficult as long as you're willing to give up. Father Wang felt that since you didn't have any talent, continuing to persist was very stupid. Every profession had its own master, so why did you have to hang on to one tree? Why couldn't you hang on other trees a few more times? Shatter dreams with a poisonous tongue, so that young people could recognize reality earlier and walk on the right path. Father Wang felt that as an elder, this was the right way to educate and guide young people. Ling Ling, how about a song? At that moment, Father Wang suddenly turned to look at Wang Ling. Wang Ling was silent. Sir, does your son also study music? Boss Tan was a little curious. Father Wang shook his head. He's only in his first year of high school this year, and has learned to play the guitar in his spare time. He can be considered a music secondhand, right? But I think if he works hard, he'll own half of the music industry sooner or later. Boss Tan clearly didn't agree with half of the music industry and shook his head. No, half of the music industry belongs to that teacher Wang Banbai. Speaking of which, this teacher Wang Banbai that Boss Tan spoke of could be considered an eccentric person. He had once boasted in the media that if the rock and roll world lost him, it would lose half of its territory, which was how Wang Banbai's nickname had come about. Now this was a slightly teasing way of putting it. Thus, this vagabond singer expressed his strong dissatisfaction with Father Wang's promotion of his son. I learned music from a vocal music teacher. Your son is just a hobby, and you still say half of the music industry. Isn't that too much of an exaggeration? Go on. Ling Ling. It's time to show off your real skills. Father Wang suddenly gave Wang Ling a thumbs up and flashed his white teeth. Ding. It was as if everyone could see Father Wang's teeth flash. Wang Ling. Go on, mother asterisk her. Of course Wang Ling refused. It was fine if he just wanted to play the guitar, but if he wanted him to sing, the problem was very serious, because he was programmed not to speak. However, under Father Wang's burning gaze, Wang Ling finally compromised. First of all, Wang Ling was afraid that Father Wang would dock his allowance for no reason because of his refusal. Secondly, Wang Ling was a little concerned about the young man's disdainful expression. Then, should he perform a bit? Thus, Wang Ling quietly went to a corner and picked up Tang Yuning's wooden guitar. He took a deep breath and felt even more nervous than his usual life at school. Tang Yuning crossed his arms and sneered as if he were watching a play. Yo, nervous already? When I sing in the streets and alleys, I've never been nervous with so many people watching me. Wang Ling swept an indifferent glance over Tang Yuning, his expression unruffled. What on earth should he sing? Wang Ling thought for a while. There were actually very few pop songs in this world, and Wuxia Nation didn't attach enough importance to music. But that didn't mean that Wang Ling couldn't listen to good music. His heaven's ear link could connect to various planes and world lines, just like a radio's FM. After pondering for a while, Wang Ling suddenly thought of a song from another plane that was very suitable for playing the guitar. Holding the guitar, Wang Ling strummed the strings a few times to test the sound. The sound of a youthful guitar rang out. Chapter 136. It was a young man's voice that was cold and aloof. Compared to the original song, it lacked the vicissitudes of life, but it had a more youthful vibe that only a young man would have. The song Wang Ling was playing was a cover of the song Old Boys by a group called the Chopsticks Brothers from Another World line. This song was about the confusion of not being able to express one's feelings to the girl one loved deeply and being afraid of being rejected. It expressed the feeling that one was no longer young and that things were the same but people were different. Wang Ling liked this song very much. Wang Ling remembered that he had once liked a girl when he had his first awakening of love. But because of his own reasons, he hadn't said a word until graduation. He had been afraid that he would hurt the other party. At that moment, Wang Ling was playing Old Boys in this rundown little restaurant with his guitar in his arms, and there was a different kind of emotion in it. As soon as he opened his mouth, both Boss Tan and Tang Yuning were directly intoxicated. That's the person I miss and love day and night. How on earth should I express it? Will she accept me? Maybe I'll never say those words to her. I'm destined to wander the world. How can I have any worries? Dreams are always out of reach. Should I give up? Flowers bloom and wilt, and it's the rainy season. Spring, where are you? Youth is like a rushing river, gone and never coming back to say goodbye. Only a numb me, not the hot-bloodedness from back then. Look at the falling flowers in the sky, wilting at the most beautiful moment. Who will remember that it once came to this world? This was the A section of the song, but Wang Ling had already put down the guitar when he sang this part. Boss Tan was completely stupefied. There was actually such a thing? While Wang Ling had been playing, Boss Tan had also looked up the lyrics in passing, and found that there were no related searches online. This was enough to prove that this was an original song. This was just a teenager in grade 1, but he was actually able to write such a touching song full of youthful spirit. At that moment, after Wang Ling finished playing and singing, both Boss Tan and Tang Yuning felt inexplicably moved. They instantly felt that this teenager had a story to tell. This was a song they had never heard before. Just listening to a small part of the melody was enough to make them feel intoxicated. Boss Tan felt that he had already become this teenager's fan. This was probably the legendary Grandmaster's blessing, right? Wang Ling. Only Wang Ling himself knew that this wasn't some ancestral master's gift at all. He didn't produce music, he was just a music porter. After putting the young man's guitar back in its original position, Wang Ling silently returned to his seat and started to eat noodles. His carefree attitude made it seem as if he had just done a very small thing, but it was an irrepressible blow to Tang Yuning's heart. Who the hell was this person? Tang Yuning was shocked. He drooped his head, feeling completely defeated. Back then, in order to learn music, he had abandoned everything and secretly used a sum of money from his family's demolition fund behind his parents' back, then gave all the money to a vocal music teacher. That money was originally reserved for him to use when he got married. Later, when the matter came to light, his family cut off all his living expenses. And Tang Yuning officially became a vagabond singer. Looks like I'm really not cut out for this. If he had listened to his parents' advice and not used the money, he might have had a wife by now. He would have lived in a brand new house and maybe he could have teased his children and found a stable life to live in. For the first time, Tang Yuning felt that his life had been a mistake. Was he going to persevere? After listening to Wang Ling's playing and singing, Tang Yuning began to seriously question himself. How much can a vagabond singer like you earn in a day? Father Wang asked. Tang Yuning's previous pride in having studied proper music theory had completely disappeared. He scratched his head and was a little embarrassed. It depends, sometimes it's raining and I can't earn much at all. I sing everywhere in the hope that people will appreciate me for my music and not pity me. There was silence in the shop. Tang Yuning touched his guitar, his eyes a little moist. I thought that given my ability I would have no problem passing the auditions. Now this is all I have left. Then do you plan to continue down this path? Father Wang asked again. Tang Yuning shook his head. I don't know. You don't know, I just want to. Father Wang raised his eyebrows and felt that this young man was quite persistent. An average person would have given up long ago under Father Wang's venomous tongue attack. These people often couldn't accomplish anything big, but this hesitation just showed that the young man didn't want to give up so easily. What did you think of my son's song just now? That song was really good. Tang Yuning was a little excited but at the same time a little disappointed. Maybe I'll never be able to write this song in my lifetime. Have you ever thought that your failure in the auditions might have been because of the song you chose? Father Wang asked again. Sitting in his seat, Wang Ling raised his eyebrows slightly. He could already feel that Father Wang's attitude toward the young man was a little different. He had changed from a venomous tongue to an enlightened one. After that, father and son and Loopy Toad directly left the small shop, leaving Boss Tan clutching 33 yuan and 70 cents with a flustered expression on his face. After teleporting home with Father Wang and Loopy Toad, Wang Ling saw Father Wang leaning back on the sofa and letting out a long sigh of relief. Your mom maxed out my pay card, we have to be frugal these days. Wang Ling, Father Wang looked at Wang Ling earnestly and said earnestly, look, I used my little wisdom today to save money on 2 bowls of beef noodles. Do you know what it means to run a household diligently and thriftily? This is it. Chapter 137. In all of Wang Ling's plans for life, apart from being able to live a stable life, there was almost nothing else he wanted. But he realized that no matter what he wanted to do, things always turned out contrary to his wishes. For Wang Ling, a little ordinary life wasn't easy to come by. May 29th, the 5th Saturday of the semester. In the morning, the doorbell of the Wang family's small villa rang. Because of the Wang Situ's wrath over a beauty incident in the last 2 days, Father Wang owed a lot of manuscripts, and had just gone to bed after pulling an all-nighter to write them. He could only open the door himself. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stood at the door with a bag in his hand. When he saw Wang Ling personally open the door, he hurriedly bowed and greeted him warmly. Good morning, Brother Ling. Wang Ling's expression was cold and detached. Sometimes, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that it was actually very tiring to be friends with Wang Ling. He had to learn to read the other party's expression, otherwise he wouldn't be able to understand what the other party meant at all. Wang Ling's current expression was the standard dead fish eyes. As one of Wang Ling's few friends in the cultivation world, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he could see a trace of confusion in Wang Ling's eyes. If he could sum it up in 4 words it would be, what are you doing here? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal lifted the bag in his hand. I planted the broccoli that Great Senior gave me last time in our family spirit soil. They were watered with morning dew every day and they grew very well. I just harvested this bag of broccoli this morning. It's very fresh, so I wanted to bring some for Senior. Without another word, Wang Ling prepared to close the door. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly stuck his hand through the crack in the door. Brother Ling, wait. I'm here for serious business today. Hey, do you still remember that third saint from last time? He sent a box to the villa and I want Brother Ling to take a look at it. After thinking for a while, Wang Ling let go of the doorknob and let Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and a Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal changed into slippers as he entered the room. At the same time, he sighed endlessly in his heart. Nowadays, it really wasn't easy to come to the Holy Land to pay respects to the great seniors. Feeling that the Wang family's small villa was exceptionally quiet today, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked suspiciously, Are the seniors not at home today? Wang Ling was too lazy to explain, and casually pointed at the travel magazines on the coffee table. This was what Mother Wang and the old man saw yesterday before they left, and they didn't have time to put it away. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately understood. It turned out that the great seniors had gone on a trip. However, the location of the tour was a little strange. Hunan? South of the Milky Way? For ordinary people, that place might be a tourist attraction with beautiful mountains and rivers. But for cultivators, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that it had no tourist value at all. South of the Heavenly River was not only lacking in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but it also lacked the element of fortuitous encounters. In order to make money from cultivators, the tourist attractions were painstakingly creating gimmicks. Right now, the tourist attractions that the vast majority of cultivators yearn for should be Old Devil Han's former residence, Black Ox Treasure Town, and the Holy Land of Cultivators, the Malagobi Desert. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stared at the travel magazine for a long time. In the end, he rubbed his chin and couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. I'll buy these 2 magazines later and take a look. There's definitely something strange about the 2 great seniors choosing this scenic spot. Wang Ling, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, come to think of it, I don't remember there being any specialties south of Sky River, if you don't count manhole covers. Wang Ling didn't know how to respond to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. That's right, Brother Ling. Let me have a look at that box that Third Saint sent. After this little interlude, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finally returned to the main topic. Wang Ling nodded silently. Then, spirit light flashed in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's hand, and a suitcase with a lock appeared in it. This is a suitcase sent by Third Saint. The lock on the outside is encrypted. To be cautious, Wang Ling first used his heavenly eye to check carefully to confirm that there weren't any traps on the suitcase. He was the one who had let Third Saint go back then. Although he didn't know where he was now, the other party had indeed fulfilled his promise to Immortal Castle when they parted, and at the same time, he had withdrawn from the ranks of the 10 Saints. Wang Ling thought that this briefcase probably contained the intelligence that Third Saint had obtained. Wang Ling touched the lock on the box and frowned. It was made of green steel jade, although it couldn't compare to the hardness of the universe level. However, he was also one of the best on Earth. But that wasn't the real problem, it was that Third Saint had encrypted the lock. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, "This lock has a very elaborate design. It doesn't have a lock core, but there's a 64-bit encrypted array inside. If you want to unlock it, you have to crack this small array. I've looked up a lot of information in the last 2 days, but in the end, I came back empty-handed. After studying it for a full 2 days, I still couldn't crack it. I wonder if Brother Ling has any brilliant ideas." As soon as he said this, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw Wang Ling reach out and pinch the lock. Then there was a crack. The green steel jade lock was directly crushed into a pile of fine powder, and the suitcase bounced open with a bang. Then Wang Ling pushed the suitcase in front of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. This was 2F*** King simple and crude. As Wang Ling had guessed, after the suitcase was opened, he saw piles of materials. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a cursory look and realized that these materials were actually the transaction accounts between Landscape Manor and Immortal Castle. If he had the opportunity to sue Immortal Castle in the future, these accounts would be material evidence. I never thought that Third Saint would even be able to get his hands on their account books. These are all solid evidence. At first, we were worried that we wouldn't be able to produce any evidence. These things could be considered a small surprise, but Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was also a little disappointed. Given the current situation, these material evidence wouldn't be of much help to the current situation. At most, it could only prove that Immortal Castle, which was a well-known educational institution, had an unspeakable chain of interest behind it. The lord of the castle was a very cautious person. As time passed, the loopholes in the accounts that Third Saint had found might be wiped clean bit by bit. For these people, money laundering was as easy as eating and drinking. Wang Ling stared at the suitcase for a moment. He pushed aside the piles of materials at the top, and finally found an inconspicuous secret compartment at the very bottom. This secret compartment had been processed with a special space expansion technology, and looked like the eye of a needle from the outside, but it still couldn't escape Wang Ling's eyes. It was conceivable that Third Saint had taken such a watertight security measure to prevent this suitcase from falling into someone else's hands. Even if someone took the accounts inside, they wouldn't be able to read them. But it was very obvious that the thing in the secret compartment was the key. As expected of Brother Ling. You could even find this. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal started to feel ashamed of his inferiority again. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal used his spirit energy to pull out the thing hidden in the secret compartment. Chapter 138. An embroidered pouch? It looks like this is the real message that Third Saint wants to give us. These accounts are just a cover. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was suddenly a little excited. Whether it was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal or Wang Ling, they had both experienced Immortal Castle's way of doing things. It was watertight. But in the end, humans weren't sages, and this was true even for cultivators. No matter how meticulous their thinking was, they would still stumble. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rummaged through the contents of the embroidered pouch. In addition to a gray notebook, there was also a glass bottle filled with a black liquid. What's this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the bottle and sniffed it. It actually smelled like loquat cream, and he was instantly startled. Could it be this bottle? The legendary bomb that can make female live streamers wish they were dead. Wang Ling already didn't have the energy to ridicule this man who would act stupidly from time to time. This thing doesn't look like body-tempering liquid. The ingredients inside are a little strange. Under Wang Ling's dead fish gaze, the man in white finally became a little more serious. He carefully put down the glass bottle and flipped open the gray notebook on the side. As he flipped through the notebook, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression became more and more serious, and he cried out in alarm. This is big news. Brother Ling. While Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still flipping through the notebook, Wang Ling had almost finished reading his mind at the same time. Then, the two of them sat on the sofa in the same position as they stared at the bottle of black potion, their chins cupped in contemplation. According to the records in the gray notebook, this black potion was a kind of special strengthening potion first developed by Immortal Castle. It was designed for cultivators who couldn't make any further progress in their realms. At the cost of a certain amount of their lifespan, their body functions would mutate, and they would be able to display formidable battle strength that their realm couldn't match. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was the contents of the second half of the notebook. The latter half contained all sorts of data on Immortal Castle's human drug experiments on students under the guise of an educational institution. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned deeply, his eyes flashing with resentment. Who would have thought that Immortal Castle would actually do such an insane thing behind the scenes? No matter what, they can't ruin the flowers of the motherland. Wang Ling also frowned. Remembering something, he directly spoke to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal telepathically. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately nodded. Brother Ling, don't worry, I'll bring back the ingredients for this medicine right away and personally deliver them to Immortal Toya. With his experience, it shouldn't be a problem for him to detect the composition of the drug. After saying this, Wang Ling saw the man sigh deeply. In this day and age, those who have money rely on equipment, and those who don't have money rely on mutations. I didn't expect this saying to be true. In that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal truly felt the sorrow behind this mutated enhancer. When all was said and done, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that this was the same as that group of cultivators who had once bitterly clung to their orthodoxy and tried their best to reach the sky in a single bound. For the sake of cultivation, he could defy the will of the heavens and do anything. For the sake of his realm, he racked his brains and tried to take a shortcut. However, since ancient times in the cultivation world, the strong cultivators who stood out in front of the world and were worshipped by the people all relied on their own cultivation, accumulated bit by bit and walked step by step. Yes, there were no shortcuts to cultivation in the first place. There are no shortcuts on the path of cultivation, so why are there so many people who can't figure it out? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt very tired in his heart. All these years he had been promoting the values of cultivation on the forum, but it had all gone to waste. After obtaining the lead on the brocade pouch, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal left the Wang family's small villa gloomily. Before he left, he didn't forget to tell Wang Ling to personally deliver the broccoli he had planted to Grandfather Wang. Wang Ling didn't know what on earth this man would do after that. Immortal Castle wasn't easy to deal with. If it had just been a small, ordinary organization, given this great death-courting senior's personality, he would have long since gone berserk in anger. He would definitely have directly charged into Immortal Castle and turned it upside down to fully display his bursting sense of justice, right? But looking at the current situation, there clearly wasn't enough reason for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to do so. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still didn't have any proof that Immortal Castle was conducting human experiments on its students. It was useless to just rely on some notes. There were some things that had to be seen to be believed. After leaving the Wang family's small villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal called Little Black again. "Hello, Little Black? That's right, I need to trouble you again. I have a few students' addresses, I hope you can help me check them out. Oh, by the way, how's the restoration of the laboratory going?" On the other end of the line, Little Black was clearly already used to being bossed around like this. "AI, it's not bad, except for the Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong cannon, everything else has basically been repaired. Brother Lei, last time you told me that you would help me find the bastard who destroyed the laboratory. Do you have a plan for this?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded solemnly. "Don't worry, I'll remember it. Once you've repaired the cannon, I'll directly look for Ling Jinren and use my great spiritual senses to track down that bastard. Then the two of us will carry the cannon and blow up that bastard's house." "Little Black, wouldn't that be a little too violent?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "What else is there to say when dealing with this kind of bastard? Let me tell you, Little Black, you're my brother. My brother's house was smashed up, I can't just sit back and do nothing. When I find that person's address, I'll be the first to carry the cannon and blow it up. Leave this matter to me." Little Black, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. I'll have to trouble you to help me find the addresses of those students as soon as possible." "Little Black, what kind of information do you have? The more information there is, the faster I'll be able to find them." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned at this question, because the information provided in the notebook was really limited. It only recorded the students' age, height, weight and other physical data, as well as the changes after they had taken the mutation potion. There was really very little other information. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. That's a little. Little Black's heart thumped. "How much?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal answered truthfully, "Height, weight, age, 3D as well as the length and thickness of the Tower of Babel. Oh, that's right, there's also a medical record of a circumcision." Little Black. Suddenly, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had a bold idea. "Maybe we can start with the andrology hospital. Maybe that'll give us some clues. Let's see if they've gone for a circumcision or something, and then use the medical records. Won't we be able to find the addresses?" Chapter 139. It could only be said that Xiaohei was indeed Xiaohei. As a world-class outstanding programmer, it quickly found the whereabouts of a few students in the notebook. There were 3 students in total, and they were currently being treated in isolation at Shanghai City's second Cultivation People's Hospital. The cost of treatment in isolation was extremely high. In order to prevent the matter from being exposed, Immortal Castle covered all the medical expenses during this period, and also gave the victims' families a token amount of money to keep their mouths shut. However, this could not conceal the harm of human experimentation to society. The isolation treatment room was located in a separate area of the secondary hospital. Without the hospital's procedures and relevant permits, even family members could not enter. But grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had his own special technique for visiting patients. That was because when Little Black was investigating second Cultivation People's Hospital, he happened to discover that the director of this independent ward was actually Immortal Toya's disciple, Li Miaojin. May 30th, Sunday of the 5th week of school. The temperature was a little low today. It was fine for cultivators, but ordinary people had to at least change from short sleeves to long sleeves, otherwise they would definitely get sick from the unique cold air lingering in Shanghai City. The temperature in the weather forecast fluctuated up and down, indicating that Shanghai City had officially entered epilepsy mode in the next month. Sometimes it was as hot as deep summer and sometimes it was as cold as winter. The temperature fluctuated. However, the vast majority of people who had lived in Shanghai City for a long time were already used to this bit of difference in temperature. Because of Immortal Toya's instructions, Director Li was already standing guard at the entrance of Second Hospital's independent ward, waiting for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to come over. They had arranged to meet at 8 o'clock in the morning. Director Li was wearing a white coat and had a hospital identification card around his neck. On the inside he was wearing a thick vest. The cold air from the frozen sea was at its strongest between 8 and 9 in the morning. Director Li stood at the door and rubbed his hands. He looked up at the sky and rolled his eyes. How many times has it been since we failed to enter the summer? Just as he was lamenting in his heart, two figures appeared at the independent ward in the distance. It was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling. He had originally planned to take advantage of the old man's trip this morning to reinforce his little tricycle. Unexpectedly, early in the morning, a man dressed in white appeared at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa with a sinister smile on his face. Lei Morin wanted Wang Ling to go to the hospital with him. As a prerequisite, he would ask an acquaintance to help Wang Ling reinforce the tricycle. After careful consideration, Wang Ling concluded that he wasn't losing out on this deal. Firstly, he could save some money. Secondly, he could avoid contact with outsiders. These days, finding a strengthening shop was like going to a barbershop. As soon as he entered the shop, a bunch of strange directors and chief executives would come out and start promoting and applying for membership cards. Wang Ling had always been disgusted. Thus, after thinking it over, Wang Ling was forcibly dragged over by grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Director Li's expression was a little strange when he saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal personally riding the tricycle with a young boy sitting behind it. Before the tricycle could come close, Director Li immediately went forward and bowed to Lei Morin. "Hello, Senior Lei, my Shifu has already told me about the situation." Then he turned to Wang Ling, "May I know who this is?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought seriously for a bit, then patted Wang Ling on the shoulder and replied, "This is our Cultivation Forum's most powerful rake, Ling Jinren." "Wang Ling, this is the legendary Ling Jinren?" Director Li was shocked and hurriedly bowed to Wang Ling. "I've long heard of Ling Jinren's name from my Shifu, but I didn't expect him to be so young." There was no doubt in his words. After all, cultivators nowadays had too many ways to maintain their youthful looks. However, Wang Ling had maintained his youthful look so well. Director Li had to admit that this was indeed the first time he had seen someone like this. Wang Ling nodded at the hospital director as a form of greeting. In contrast, Director Li looked a little flattered. Leading the two of them to the entrance of the independent zone, Director Li stood in front of the door and greeted the security captain. "These two are my friends." The security captain stuck his head out of the security room for a look, and saw a man on a tricycle outside the door with a boy sitting on it. But the captain didn't think much of it and directly opened the gate. Actually, Director Li was taking a risk by bringing Wang Ling and Wang Ling in, because the hospital's higher-ups had already instructed that no one was to be allowed in unless they were a patient's immediate family member or relevant medical staff. But the hospital was this kind of place. As long as you had connections, you would naturally be able to get in. When all was said and done, this was a society of connections. "Is there a place to park?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked the security captain as they entered the door. The security captain's face was full of black question marks. "You're riding AF *** King Tricycle." But because Director Li was here, it wasn't appropriate for the security captain to say anything, and he pointed ahead. "Turn left 100 meters ahead, there's a parking lot." "Thank you." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal cupped his fists in a salute, then rode the tricycle straight into the parking lot with a drift. Finally, he looked around and stopped in the middle of a Maybach and a Maserati. Director Li struggled to keep up behind him. He hadn't expected this tricycle to be so *** King fast. Wang Ling calmly got off the tricycle and straightened his clothes, his heart as still as an ancient well. After all, he had blessed this little three-wheeled motorcycle with his own hands. There were two inpatient buildings in the independent area of Second Hospital. Director Li led the two of them to the base of one of the buildings, which had a very imposing fountain at the entrance. Wang Ling noticed that the color of this building was very special. It was actually black. Director Li stood at the entrance with his hands clasped behind his back. "This is our Second Hospital's VIP isolation building, which is specially opened for critically ill patients. My eldest senior brother personally invested in it, and even the reinforced concrete is custom-made with spirit herb paste. Staying in this building can delay the patient's illness to the greatest extent. Even terminally ill patients will have enough time for treatment. As they entered the first floor, they were greeted by a dazzling lineup of pennants and certificates, such as Miracle Hands, City Advanced Units and so on. The secondary hospital specially used a wall to hang the certificates neatly on the wall. But the most obvious one was the portrait of an old man with a mustache hanging in the middle of the pile of certificates. His eyes were slightly narrowed and he looked very amiable. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. This is? At the mention of this person, Director Li instantly looked a little excited. This is my eldest senior brother, Li Shizhen. Wang Ling, this is the man who built this building and brought hope to countless patients. Director Li excitedly pointed to a horizontal board at the back of the door, which Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing senior immortal hadn't noticed when they had entered. This horizontal board was personally inscribed by my eldest senior brother. It's the name of this building. Wang Ling turned his head to look. Immediately, for huge golden words appeared in front of his eyes. Night Shift Hospital. Chapter 140. Second hospital had 30 floors in total, and treated all kinds of strange patients. When they arrived at the elevator on the first floor, they happened to see a young nurse pushing a trolley out of the large elevator. When she saw Director Li, the nurse hurriedly bowed her head and said, "Good morning, Director Li." Director Li had a good memory, she could remember most of the nurses who worked in this building by name, and could even compare the patients they were taking care of. "Little Lu, how's the patient today?" asked Director Li. The patient Nurse Lu was in charge of was very special. When it came to her patient, the young nurse furrowed her willowy eyebrows and looked like she had a headache. As usual, this patient keeps spouting nonsense. He insists that he's a transmigrator. He also lies about having a superpower. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, what superpower? Let me show you. After saying that, Nurse Lu immediately jumped left and right and roared, "Whoosh!" Director Li, after this shameful performance, Nurse Lu quickly regained her composure and sighed deeply. That patient keeps saying that he can teleport. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Wang Ling, as you can see, there are a lot of strange patients here. Huagua Water Curtain Group has invested a lot in the establishment of a research bureau for hard-to-treat diseases over the years. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to find an effective solution for these diseases. Director Li sighed. Following Director Li into the elevator, Director Li pressed the button for the 18th floor. Our building distributes wards according to the difficulty of the patient's treatment. The more difficult the illness is, the higher the floor they are arranged to live on. How are the three children? Grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart couldn't help trembling when he saw the number 18 floor. This was already the 18th floor. What kind of lunatic was living on the 30th floor? Information on the conditions of the patients in the independent zone was basically confidential. However, Director Li was still able to learn a thing or two based on his connections. As the elevator rose, Director Li frowned the whole time. As far as I know, 2 of these 3 children's conditions are basically under control. But they're only under control. They could flare up again at any time. The remaining child's condition is worse. Did the hospital find out what the mutation potion was made of? Asked Grenade-throwing senior immortal. They signed a confidentiality agreement with the family and gave them a sizable amount of compensation. They didn't even provide the ingredients of the potion. They completely handed it over to our hospital to treat it. Director Li shook his head. According to the current treatment results, the effect of the potion is no longer just affecting their cell structure. It seems to be a little mentally as well. You'll see when you get to the ward. 10 seconds later, the elevator reached the corresponding floor. Chief Li led the 2 of them through a long corridor and arrived at the innermost ward. The ward was very big. There were 3 beds in total and they were all separated by glass. Wang Ling immediately saw 3 teenagers of his age. One was sitting on the bed and clapping his hands non-stop, one was lying as straight as a pole on the bed, and the last one was directly lying on the ground, in the embrace of Mother Earth. Wang Ling felt that he had broadened his horizons. There was a saying that mental patients had a wide range of thinking, and this wasn't false at all. He was stunned to realize that his mind-reading ability was completely useless on these 3 people. Just like the old man when he was suffering from Alzheimer's. Director Li pointed to the first patient who was clapping. Patient number 1, after taking the mutation potion, feels that he can summon the heavenly flame. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked doubtfully, then why is he clapping? Director Lee, he's imitating the angry Buddha Fire Lotus. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Don't underestimate him. His current situation is already under control and he's just clapping. Every time he clapped before he would yell out angry Buddha Fire Lotus. So we defined his condition as acute Chinibyu syndrome. Wang Ling, Director Lee pointed to the second patient. Patient number 2, after taking the mutation potion, the powerful side effects caused him to completely lose control. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, like a vegetable? Director Lee nodded. He can be considered a conscious vegetable. He can eat but the food has to be put into his mouth. At the worst he can't even be bothered to chew. So after that we switched to fluid transfusions to maintain his body's nutrients. We defined his condition as chronic Guyu paralysis salted fish syndrome. Wang Ling, after that, Director Lee pointed to the last patient. Patient number 3 should be the only one of the 3 who successfully mutated. But his ability is very weak. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Then why is he lying on the ground? Director Lee's expression was calm. He's imitating Spider-Man. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Not long after Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal followed Director Lee into the night duty building, the window of a Maybach in the parking lot slowly rolled down, and the person sitting in the driver's seat was Song Qingshu's tall subordinate. He had watched helplessly as Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal entered the building, and had immediately called Song Qingshu to report the situation. Lord Director, you guessed right. As expected, this incident has attracted attention. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. Sure enough, he had been right to send people to keep an eye on them. The tall man in a suit asked, then what should we do now? The Lord has specifically instructed us not to let outsiders know about the potion. After Third Saint betrayed us, the Lord has always been worried that this person would do us harm. Who would have thought that he would actually bring trouble to our doorstep so quickly? Song Qingshu said unhurriedly, there are only 2 paths in front of us now. Either we get rid of those 3 students, or we get rid of these visitors who know about this. The man in a suit was clearly dazed. Lord Director, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but it doesn't seem possible to get rid of these 2 people who know about this. Although we lost a lot of our manpower last time, there are still 7 of the 10 saints left. Is there anything that 7 soul formation cultivators can't handle? There are only 2 people on the other side, right? The man in a suit. But of these 2 people, one of them is that great death-courting senior. Song Qingshu wanted to swear a little. Motherf **** her. How could it be him again? Forcing himself to calm down, Song Qingshu took a deep breath. Then, who is the other person? The man in a suit answered truthfully, it's a youngster. He's been with this great death-courting senior the whole time. They drove here. But this great death-courting senior seems to respect him very much. The youngster who had driven here with Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? After losing 2 generals, Great Saint and Second Saint, in a row the last time, Song Qingshu was already traumatized by the word youngster. Could it be the one in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa? As he pondered this, Song Qingshu's hands were already shaking uncontrollably. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.